hard thing, and others do the rest. The three main things we're going to do is to share this lecture called Anatomy of Corruption, and then we have a discussion with people who know more than me, because they're in the world of corruption, like Nzeakor, who is deep inside corruption. And we have Debo Adeniran, the professional corruption spotter. He started spotting corruption when nobody knew. When we were saying who was good, Fashola was good, he was very suspicious of them.
Yes.
The panel will be moderated by Nabilah Usman, who's known for not minding her business. That would be a good thing, the way we go. Let me start by thanking everybody very much for being here, because as I said, this shows resilience and desire to understand things that will create time for events like this. And then go on to say, these lectures that we do is our own way of linking academia to the world. Normally, the idea behind it is to get professional practitioners, people who are involved in issues, to sit together and to link practice to knowledge. It's our own idea of contributing to the world around us, bringing different perspectives together and, a sort of a sharper view on items. So that is our plan when we put these things together. What comes out as a Nigerian parlance, only God can tell. And that's what we're dealing with today. So the theme for our conversation today is corruption, and what we're doing is an anatomy of corruption. Before we started, I had a very fascinating conversation with Taye Akibe, who was asking me, what was your question? Why are we doing it now? Explain that. Maybe that might be.
What we're doing today is actually long overdue. We ought to have started a long time ago. Now that corruption has eaten into the marrows of everybody, we're now beginning to talk about it. Why?
And I think
why now?
Anyway, maybe
it's been in discussion for a long
for a
time.
very long time.
There's no time to really talk
I
about
sent you the PowerPoint, didn't I?
Maybe it's not loud.
The PowerPoint for today.
It wasn't loud enough, because if it had been loud enough, you wouldn't
Well,
have
I'm going to need it. Let them bring my laptop.
What's this man saying? This cookie man. You wouldn't have him do what he did now.
My sister, it's been long. Many of these discussions have been within the household. Talk of corruption, underdevelopment is all over the household.
Yes.
But people kept on saying, and some of us suffered. I was not promoted in my workplace for 10 years. I worked in NID.
If you remember Taishola at the Freedom Square,
Yes.
talk about corruption, and it's right up in Tribune, all about corruption.
Corruption not in my
Because when Babangida came, that is democratized corruption.
Exactly. Not in my country.
And you remember, even the first coup was hinged on corruption in the first republic.
So what happened? Why are people not changing? Professor,
So maybe Anthony
why are we not able to get
Anthony
it right?
will do
That's the question I'm asking.
Professor said Nabilah is to be blamed, Taye is to be blamed, and I but we are all to be blamed. All of us. Yes. Because the truth is we've always heard it.
No, maybe Taye
What
should
you
be
failed
blamed.
to ask.
She was not, you were not listening when we were talking about it. And that's why you said it wasn't loud enough. Even if we were whispering it, you ought to have joined
My
it.
sister, look at fake certificates. I remember in the 80s, many of my friends, many parents were saying, let me go to the court and swear my child is so age to get her into
Yeah.
That's what
in the 80s.
Cheating was prominent in 1980, 81, 82. They kept on rising and rising.
And all of us, now they are talking fake certificates. It's not me on this.
It has always been there.
You see, Oluwole has always been there.
Yes, everybody is still there.
Oluwole is still there. That is because you didn't do what you got to do.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And let me tell you,
only
it's
changed
easier.
location.
You only think, oh,
It's easier to be corrupt than to be discipline.
Yes, of course it is.
Sometimes when I'm talking to many of my age mates,
Yeah.
many were senior managers in the 70s and 80s. Believe you me, my sister, some are living in Kurudu, some are living in Ota, and on and on. Just this morning, somebody was asking me, give me a reason why I should be honest. When people who were not as good as me at school are very... They were telling me about somebody today, I don't want to be mentioned. They went for a cruise. They spent millions of dollars.
Yes. I
And
suspect that
they said that at that time, they would bring ship to central bank
Yeah,
to
come
load
and
the
carry.
ship with money from it. So it was there and it
I
got
think
into
there
your
are-
skin. I tell you, my
I think
sister,
there are-
it's easier to stay rather than to work hard.
to work
Yes.
hard. Yes.
For me, I'm an economist and I'm an
many people,
Debo
many
Adeniran.
people.
I had believed in saving my pennies and things. But my friends, and when you see many, list the billionaires in this country.
Most of them are Ijebus.
91%. Yes. Most of them are corrupt. They are no longer Igbos.
But I think to tie it together.
There's another platform. They are asking us to come and make a presentation, and I told the man doing the survey, I said, just go into your online,
Okay.
give me a total of revenue that has been raised since 1970 to date. I know what
Yeah,
per
that's
capita
right.
income is.
Yeah.
Give me the list of billionaires. Give me the list of jet owners, private jet owners.
Mm.
And you know it.
And Yachu
And then look at the list of federal projects, the first development plan, second development plan. Look at all the projects. Who were there? It will show you the list of the corruption in this country. I'm telling you.
That's great. That's great.
Well, I
About corruption is very clear because we're familiar with it. We're so familiar with it that it has brought content to our knowledge
I will
of
not be
it.
speaking the language corruption understand.
I think it comes in our face. It's a bit like
Look,
So it's
especially
the way of
we
life.
women.
beautiful.
Let me give you an example. Most times we see corruption in others, we don't see it in others. Now, to get your international, your passport, it's supposed to cost, let's say, 30,000. I don't know the actual price. What you need to do is to sit in your home,
Fast track.
fill the form, do everything, then print out the document that you have paid. Take it to the passport office. They will give you a date when you will come and do your capturing and the foreign. But you go there, they will tell you it has not dropped. That's why I had that language. You want to collect your driver's license, the same thing. Now, the man or the woman that you go to meet that is pretending to help you will collect money from you. This same man tomorrow will go to church or mosque and thank God that God bless me during the week. And so he has not seen it.
As a
That
wrong thing.
he has already crossed corners there.
And I
Then
think
he asks you, the same man will tell you that the policeman is corrupt. And last man, he called me yesterday, he collected money from me. He has forgotten that he also collected. So that's the way it is.
There was a woman priest who was conducting naming ceremony for a newborn baby. He gave the child a pen that as you grow up, you will join those who use pen to
write zeros after check.
after check.
Ceremony. That when you grow up, you use
So
this
maybe
pen.
that such
You
a
add zero
mother
to it.
would have educated
Their
her
child.
children on how to commit corruption crime from the cradle. And that's what they're going to do.
But and I think so. This reflects the sort of hierarchical relationship as well we're talking about it now. Clearly, it's something on our face. We're so familiar with it that I think we've lost the ability to reappraise it. It's a bit like the air we breathe. You know, the famous familiarity that brings contempt because it's so in our face that we do not sit down to appreciate it anymore and to look at it. And that loss of our ability to have a fresh and deep look at it, I think it's one of the reasons why it can eat us deep in the flesh to our bones sometimes. So, you're welcome, John. That's how we are. what we're going to do today is to try to have a sort of organic approach to it, to really look at it and then see if we can provide some solutions on dealing with it. If we're to pick a roadmap of how we're going to move, we'll look at our perception of corruption, we'll look at our conception of it, then we'll look at the method of analysis we're going to look at today, and review some of our understanding of corruption, its causes, and some things I've termed enablers of corruption, and see if we can find some antidotes just to guide our operations as we move on. So, let me start by delving straight away into our perception of corruption. Generally speaking, most people think corruption is the most responsible fact for our problem. If not all of it, we tend to link it to corruption generally, anything we talk about. So, if we look at the problem we have in our country, we think of things like fuel scarcity. We think it's corruption because some people are diverting the money. For subsidy, even the leaders say that it's because people are stealing the money. So, their leaders, in their Solomonic view, have decided that because a few thousand people are stealing, they will punish 100 millions of people. That is the kind of wisdom we use in Nigeria to do things. If we have bad roads, it's because some people have stolen the money for our roads. Is what we think. So it's corruption. If we have bad schools, it is because they have stolen the money for education. Is what we're used to thinking. If we have poor health care, it's because they've stolen the money. It's corruption. If we have, what else? The bad economy, it's because they've stolen. I mean, it doesn't help, of course, because some people even steal palliative. And so that is the kind of perception we have generally. This, when we look at corruption, makes us think that corruption is everywhere.
Yes.
Around us. It's in government. We've heard about the custom and the people doing passports. I think that's immigration. We've seen it in our schools. That's very sad work. Because
Churches.
yeah, well, in churches everywhere. So we see corruption is everywhere, but there's something very fascinating that sort of separates us from the rest of the world. Why we see everywhere in Nigeria, and we admit that it's a Nigerian phenomenon, at least we have that perception, we're also quick to understand that it is not so in the rest of the world. Like there is another place where life is not like that, and life is so in this world. And if you want to look at this example very well, of how we view how corruption is so common, and by the way, it is true that we understand that corruption is eating everything in Nigeria, and elsewhere it is not that way. There are reasons to believe it. One of my favorite examples of how true this is something that I picked up some years ago. I call it "I'm Here to Study Corruption," and it's a true life story. There was an international program of people across the world, and when you get there, it was a 6-month program where people were selected for governance and information technology, banking, different kind of things like that. And there's a couple of Nigerian scholars. When you come in for a general thing, then you see the area where you want to specialize. And one of them wrote corruption. That's what I wanted to study. Because the idea is that you have to study something that will be beneficial to your country. So by the time we got to Stockholm, when they divided people into groups of who they will work on, they put the Nigerian person in the group of IT people. Because when he said he was there to study corruption, they just assumed there was corruption of IT. They didn't think that that it was a real thing. So the guy doesn't know, I'm here to study corruption, why am I with IT people? Because they were talking about things. So it is true that it is something very common here, and at the same time, very far away. I say this because if somebody talks about corruption in Nigeria, you understand what he's saying immediately. And you start suspecting everybody, even in the office where you are. You start thinking something is going on there. Whereas elsewhere it's not the case. Because other people will not put it in their business plan. They won't think about that. Once they list generator, without seeing their name, I know where this one is from. We can relate. So this leads us to the idea of saying that is corruption a Nigerian peculiarity?
No.
Is this something we've got?
No.
So we're going to look at it. To get to that answer at which you got quickly, and it takes us to our method of study, what we have opted to do is to look at the anatomy of it. The anatomy, as we know, is a branch of science, medicine, biology that studies the parts, the components of the body that breaks it down. That is easy to understand, or at least straightforward to explain. What is peculiar about anatomy as a study or method of study is that it tends to be, yes, detailed, no doubt. It tends to be logical. But what fascinates me about it is that it's an immoral way of study. It doesn't bring passion to the table. It doesn't bring morality. It just breaks it down for what it is. It just looks at it that for this body, for this organ to work with it, this is what is needed. It really doesn't matter. And if you don't have what is needed, we ask, can we take somebody else's on there? It's not a matter of God gives, God takes. That doesn't happen in anatomy. It's not God. We are the one that decide what is needed. That is why we chose anatomy as a method of study, so that we can relate that. Whilst we're saying that, I think it's a good time to mention as well that part of the way we have dealt with corruption in Nigeria has been emotionally as a moral issue, operationally as a judicial issue. So those are the two levers we've used to deal with it. We go from scandal to jail them, kill them. You keep saying jail people, it means that we've not built prisons. Those are the kind of fascinating things. I remember close to 9 years ago now. No, actually more than 9 years ago. When the lanky man that has gone to Dwyer now, the fair one, that was, him. When he came to power, some of us were with him in the room, and one thing I suggested was that we might not have to arrest people, but if in 100 days in office, we announce that we're going to build 100 more prisons, it will send a strong signal, especially if it comes from you. It was general, especially if it comes from you. He laughed. I didn't know he was laughing at me. I thought he was enjoying the idea. There we go. Now I know better. At least I'm still in Lagos. So, this idea of scandals, jail everybody, just do this. We tend to deal with it that way. And I think we need a group of people who will be developing a more organic, coordinated way of looking at it. Hence, the method we've opted for to look at it. And then, I think we need to ask ourselves another question that we know. I mean, it's a rhetorical question, but I think for conversations like this, it's always good to say, what is corruption? Because we know, because we have an idea of it, I think we should spend this time to talk more about going beyond what we say about it. We all know it's bribery. We all know it's government, people looting money, or maybe the treasurer of your church or club fiddling with their account. That's the obvious one we're about. But that word corruption, it has become a shorthand or a box in which we put many things, and we just use it to assume a lot of things. So in a way, it is like sin for believers. We just use the short word of sin. Anything wrong is a sin. Or for the postmodern society, stress. Somebody comes late to work is stress. Somebody writes a CDSA for me because they were stressed. Everything is stress. Somebody is distracted in my lesson, they say they're stressed. Everything is, stress is the new. So the believers have sin, the secular world have stress. Inside those two words, there's a lot of things. My thinking is that we want to understand corruption very well. We need to open that box. We need to do longhand instead of shorthand. Nobody even does shorthand anymore in the world. Even I tried it, I wasn't a very good student. Maybe elder, those are people that do shorthand. Those are people that study shorthand. But they still do. What that thing is done in Westminster, no idea. Those are things that are laws that we need to find. It's good to know those things when it affects your, even if you don't know shorthand itself, knowing what it's about helps your analysis of other things. I think we need to bring them back. So, the shorthand that we have, if we really want to understand the concept better, it might be a good idea to break it down. Yes, to open that box and you see the kind of things that come out of it. So that we can get not just an understanding, but a conscious understanding of the concept we're dealing with. Inside the word corruption is a very important word which we don't look at all. A lexicon we don't use. And it's dangerous we don't use it. It's one of the ones that worries me is extortion. Now, extortion is a very serious kind of crime. We just call it corruption and let it go. The idea that you will force me, we think it's Bible, but it's beyond that. Because you're in a position, because you're wearing the uniform, you use your power over me to force me to do something, to get money out of me. It's a very serious kind of crime because, number one, straight away, it impedes economic growth. Yes. Especially when you think about it, that it's not just people in uniform, it's also area boys. It's just anybody who thinks they have more power over you. When we talk about ease of business or attracting things, it's something that causes trouble a lot of time. But not more importantly, I just find it very fascinating. It's something that is humiliating. The fact that somebody will coerce me to do something. Every time a policeman stops me, when the argument goes on, I always try to make it clear to them that be careful, is your uniform doing this? Because I'll beat you up right now. It's man on man. I always find a way to make that point. That I say, then let's continue the conversation from here. You know, just remember that. So let's respect that uniform you're wearing. Let's play this game nicely. Both of us. And I think that if we reintroduce this kind of lexicon to our reasoning, extortion, it will let us see corruption in a different way as well. Another fascinating term we just throw off away, we don't deal with, is nepotism, which is a very strong form of corruption as well. We know what it is, but here's the point. Somebody, and it tends to be in allocation of offices or privileges or goods or rights. Offices, goods or services or rights. The goods, services or rights or offices that tends to be abused in nepotism belongs to the Commonwealth. In most cases, belongs to most Nigerians. Nobody argues that Nzeakor sets up his company and his son or daughter takes over. Nobody thinks an eye. The problem is when one of us gets to a place that belongs to all of us, then turns it to their own thing. It goes beyond just taking something. It's something that actually humiliates, destroys, then above all, besides what it does, it now slows our progress down. And so when we talk about what we were saying before, when people say, what point, why should I be good? It is because of those kind of things. That it is better for you to make friends than to work hard. Yes. Yeah. And therein lies how insidious, how bad the concept of nepotism seems. So that when we treat that, we shouldn't treat it just on that corruption stuff. In itself, it's something huge that destroys us. Another expression that we don't use is abuse of office. It goes beyond nepotism, it's part of it. It is important to separate these things because, you know, the big blanket of corruption just covers everything. Abuse of office is not just to promote people when they do not merit it. It's not just taking the money. It is actually using the office to do what you ought not to be doing with it. That, again, besides impeding development, it humiliates other people. It kills the authority of the office and it kills competence of that office itself. I think it is important that we spend time to break it down that way. There's another word on that corruption, we don't even talk about it anymore. Well, we do talk about it when we're wrong, it's sabotage. Instead of of us seeing sabotage for what it is, it has become an instrument of indolence, especially in the hand of government. They say the reason why prices are high is people are hoarding. What nonsense. Do people hoard here? Hoarding comes only when there is scarcity. The idea of hoarding, you know, if you have a product or goods or service and you hoard it, you're going to lose because people walk away and buy from the next one if it's available. It only comes into play because there is not enough, but it's not well managed. And it's important to say these things, to get it right, especially to notice it. Now, sabotage we can see, it is used by, on one hand, but I think the problem is that we, the people and scholars, do not call sabotage out by ourselves. We do not say the way you're behaving, you're sabotaging us. What are you doing? Why would a minister stand up and say, the people in my sector are corrupt? I mean, you see, there's some things that corruption is also almost eating people's brain. There's some kind of people who propagate what is wrong, what is false, are part of our huge problem in corruption. From our churches to the mosque to public affairs commentators who talk about what they don't know. People who know the headlines. So we have a new generation of influencers, commentators, public figures who have width, but they lack depth. They know headlines, they have sound bites, but they do not know. I've spoken to people, and you know, when I have the time, I try to see somebody who's called to talk about something, and you realize they don't know the history of what they're talking about. These lawyers, and I pick you up on this, lawyers who cite a part of the Constitution without taking time to put that article in context. They don't even bother to think about Raticinio Legge. What is the intention of the legislature when that law was made? We don't reason that way anymore. And these people get talk about things and they teach people. You have pastors who improvise their sermons. And they link it to a part that benefits them. So there's a whole new generation that believes that when Jesus Christ entered Jerusalem on a donkey, he was being humbled. And I tried to say to them, no, he was entered like a king. But because they've repeated that in many times, there's a whole new world that believes that. So I think false teaching is also a problem. I've seen a teacher of literature, where is the I've seen a teacher of literature who told me he didn't do Shakespeare at all. And he's teaching, yes! No Shakespeare at all. And he's teaching our children literature. What is going to come out? We need to take this thing serious and really break it down to know the essence of what corruption really is. Then there is this thing we overlook about not following the rule of law. Not following the rule of law. We think, I don't know how somehow we think that we can deal with ourselves in public spaces without following the rule of law to the letter. Once we leave that, there is trouble. You know, we think this person is just being pedantic if he's asking for commas to be, to be followed. We underrate due diligence to a point that is so dangerous in our life. Now, it's very important that outside love and faith, it is rule of law that matters. It is in love and faith that you can indulge, you can look at the mind, their intention, knowing that he doesn't mean it, she doesn't mean it, or I can even break the law for love. But when it's on secular, public, official, impersonal relationship, it is the law that guides us. It is our guarantee. It is our protection, it is our framework. And anytime we fall short of it, we fall short totally. There's no way. So I think it's important that we go back to repeat that importance of going by the rule of law. Because as I said, it is not enough for one to be good intentioned when it's not personal dealing. It is crucial that one acts within the law, because otherwise there are three major risks. Number one is that the intention might not match the action, and intention is not always easily interpreted. You don't know. You can only imagine. You can base on it because of the attraction, because of your faith, but you cannot prove it. Number two is that it creates bad precedents. Let us assume that we have a leader or manager or head of any agency or office who is a good, righteous person today, and we allow him or her to operate outside the rule of law. The risk is two words: what if? What if the good, righteous man of today goes mad tomorrow? Not by his intention. His village people, they finally get to him. What if? What if the
What if the power comes?
what if the good and righteous man of today goes rogue tomorrow? What if? What if the good and righteous man today dies or goes away, and after him comes a Pharaoh that did not know Joseph? We have allowed something to happen. That is why today people will do bad things and they'll say, what about you, this person too did it? When the man that has gone to Harvard and started some battles, I was telling him that this thing is wrong. They were telling me Jonathan too did it. Now these ones are coming here, so they got the blame culture. And I greeted me from his cap, you can know who he is. When these new people got there now, they started blaming the ones, like the ones I was blaming before. We've allowed a precedent. By the time they left, I was warning them that this man you brought us, this one is colorless, he's clueless. They told me to be patient.
The money sharing.
For 8 years. Now let's see. I should relax. Relax. Everything will be fine.
That's it.
And that is where it is important. Then the other issue we have is, which is corruption, and we don't think about it that way, is politicizing national issues. We make too many things political that shouldn't be political. There are things we shouldn't argue about, but we tend to argue about it. And again, maybe this is a sin, God forgive me. I have done some jokes on some people. I will send them a story telling them the person who said it is APC. I do not say, and I said, no, it's a PDP man like you. They say, Prof, why are you doing this kind of thing now? Because we just politicize everything at every instant. We have lost our ability to say this is white when it's white, this is black when it's black, regardless of who's doing it. They said they want to move some parastatals to Lagos. Human beings like you and I with one head and two hands and two legs. Normal people going to say they are doing it because they want to transfer federal government to Lagos. What do we do about that? We have to pray, because you can't explain that. We have to fast and pray, because they went on to say to the point that there are rumors that they want to transfer Sorok to Dodon Barracks. That is what politics can do to you. It can really obscure your ability to read it. I've had more occasions to say that of all art and craft that man has invented, politics is the saddest. We just don't think it, because it is one thing that allows people to stand up and just say anything, as long as it goes into their direction. You see people lie, you go to them and say, well, say what is it? Maybe leave that matter. What does it? Leave that matter. Or leave matter for matter.
Leave matter for matter.
Yeah.
This is Nigeria.
This is Nigeria. You're too academic. That is what another aspect of it we need to look at. Why do we do all these things? Why do we go? Should we stop and, okay, I'm being told to stop and change position. Everybody should change position. Okay, so we pause, get some drinks, and we go to our natural position.
I would like to be
Sir,
Nobody can guarantee that.
we need to
What did they take?
that was my point.
What did they
So that we confirm if we are object, then we can move. If we are not,
You put on the AC first. Are we on jet? It's light, but we're okay. Oh, look at the man very well. The man that is telling us to move. Where is it?
That's what we are saying. You brought all this in the old buildings. Free flow of air.
Of all we go in. But let them do this. Let us continue. Okay. The devil you know. This case is
Bangay or Bangay.
Another issue I think we need to look at, or to relook at, because we tend to know, is why do we have this situation? And that takes us to the causes of corruption. We have an idea, but maybe when we sit down we talk about it, what we should do is to go beyond our usual understanding of it. So we should go beyond greed. That's a very obvious thing. We should go beyond a propensity for criminality. Some people are just gone rogue. I know somebody, well, let me not say his position, that has occupied a very top position in this country. If I say this, because we then know it's my school. Okay, gosh. I know somebody was a thief as a child. So yeah. So when, decades later, when he now came to the national figure and he said he stole, we just look at ourselves on the school forum and say, and we go again. That's a kind of propensity for criminality and greed and other things. But if we want to do a proper analysis of it, we need to go beyond those obvious things and see some extra things we can have. And perhaps one of those things we need to look at, and this is where we're trying to situate corruption not just in Nigeria, but it's something that will happen anywhere. A key cause of corruption that we rarely talk about is scarcity. The idea that things are not enough always tend to corrupt people. And I look at corruption in both ways, both to benefit and the oppressors and the oppressed of corruption. Let me give you an example. A very common item, like water. When it's available, nobody cares much about it. But if you put saints in a place and you ration water, put godly people and you ration water for them, and you put one person, either a coordinator or a prefect, in charge of the water, as long as you put 20 people and you give them 18 buckets of water to manage, the first thing that will happen is that somebody will start to beg that give me quickly before it finishes. Or I need a bit more. The next thing will happen is the coordinator will now arrogate the power to himself or herself to decide who to give first. That is the origin of it. Whereas, if you put 12 people in a place and you have 50 buckets of water available where they need one, it reduces the need to beg, to steal, to hold, or to decide who to give. That is a very basic understanding of how scarcity works. We talk about water. It could be space. It could be positions in school, in offices, promotion. So we need that kind of economic outlook to deal with corruption as well. We're going to deal with it. If we have a system we manage or we can manage. Another intangible is opacity. Systems that are not clear, that are shrouded in secrecy, lead to corruption. I have walked to some offices. I said I want to do something. They asked me, bring your document. I don't pause. I think this as a what document? Give me a checklist. It is when you say bring your documents, you say what is everything you have? What do you mean everything I have? You want my poems too? But they do that because they want the system to be dark so that they can decide. What we need to ask for is to make it not so shrouded in mystery. Let people know. Let them know why you're going, you are what you're going there to do. Those are the kind of things that are possible There is another point which we don't look at, and that is when we have rules that are not realistic or that are not humane to follow. If you look at people who, I remember once I had to go and apply for a visa for my nephew. And they were asking me information that honestly I couldn't get, because it never occurred to me to keep that thing. They wanted a picture of when he was a child and I was holding the child, and I said to them, you know, what if I don't like babies? But you see, because, and we should go to desperation soon, because we're desperate, we just follow those things. That's why people tend to fake documents. Somebody was mentioning earlier before. Because that's unrealistic things. Unrealistic rules and inhumane rules tend to emanate from legislators or policymakers who will not follow that rule themselves. If they were going to live, they were going to walk that line, as we say, they will know this is not realistic. They will know it doesn't make sense. And that is why in management, organizations that succeed negotiate their targets. They sit down and say, can we do this? Is it possible? Okay, let's do it. If you throw it at people, it's not going to work. They're going to lie. That is why if you hire people to do sales, I think it's going to be too loud.
Somebody said to you.
Oh, it's not good enough for you. Okay, sorry, I'll just obey people without time. So that if we have rules that are not realistic, that are not humane, people will tend to bend the rules. You know, just a way of survival. They will find ways around it. There was, I used to be part of, I think they've stopped inviting me, the Council of Vice Chancellors. And when we talk about this plagiarism thing, you know, one thing I said to them is that link scarcity, realistic rules together. If you sell a book, a 200-page book, at 2,000 naira, nobody's going to photocopy it, because it's cheaper to buy the book than to photocopy it. You know, there's some things that we need to look at that way to get our answers. Or if you ask students to go and read so much number of books, at some point they're going to lie to you. They will form groups and syndicates. I used to do it when I was a postgrad, because there were people that 10 books to read, all of us can't read, so we divide ourselves. 2 people will read one book, then we do summaries, and we give the bugger the thing, and say we've done it. It's only years later that you realize that it was been a good thing to have read it. But there and then, trust the later voice, and we got away with it. Uncertainty is another great cause of corruption. If you want to understand the uncertainty very well in Nigerian context, just go on the roads of Lagos. Have you ever seen when a commercial bus, a down for something, breaks down? People's reaction is they call the conductor. Why? Because he might run away. The idea that you go to somewhere and the forms might finish. I keep saying to people that, how can you tell me a government form finished? What kind of talk is that? Can you not imagine that 1,000 people are likely to come, do 1,500? Or the idea that you have a friend or somebody in the office today, you might not meet him there tomorrow. So you do everything, you grab all you can grab today, because they can change you tomorrow. These are intangibles that leads us to that. Because when we say this corruption thing is not in other countries, if you flip it, these are the things they have: certainty, the continuum of the office, the fact that the law is the law, the fact that what is said is, you know, what should be made. A bank, not a Nigerian bank, I'm afraid, wrote me to tell me that they've offered me a service which I've paid for, and they've realized that from my banking habits, I do not need it. So they're refunding me and giving me extra money. When are we going to get there? Why are they doing it? So I can tell people like you. You get it. You're going to ask me which bank the next time you want to bank. But we don't think that way because of lack of uncertainty. Because if we do that, who knows what will happen? Then, of course, we have
impunity. The idea that you can get away with crime pushes you to want to do crime. But I tell you what is worse about impunity. It's not that it allows you to commit crime itself. It's that even make criminals stupid. Because when you think you can get away with it, you can just do or say anything. Because after all, nothing will happen. And that's, if we have propensity to criminality, impunity gives us propensity to create dumb criminals, which is a very dangerous thing. I mean, it's bad to have criminals, but having dumb criminals is dangerous because they might destroy things. I say to people that sometimes a stupid friend is worse than a dangerous enemy. Because the dangerous enemy you keep at bay and you're alert. The friends, with good intention, they kill you. They say what they ought not to say. They go where they ought not to go. So remember that a stupid friend is worse than a dangerous enemy. We need to look into that ideal way. Then, of course, we have our values. That is what everybody has been talking about. But that value thing, let's be fair, people, it's not easy. It's a conscious decision that some of us need to take. At the moment, our lives is a bit like our roads. When you drive on the road, you realize the moment you try to obey traffic, everybody gets there before you. The moment you try to roundabout and give way, they go before you. I say to them, they say, go. Somebody's passing in a residential area. I'm waiting for them to get away. This man, use your horn now. And I'm looking, no, you're not supposed to use it there. You're the odd one. As a teacher, I live it all the time now. We do most of our classes online now. But I've noticed that sometimes in the classroom, you're talking to people about the value of hard work, content creation, and they're looking at the window, looking at people who have not done all those things, who are living a good life. It's hard to convince them. We need to find a way, this is where the value thing comes into reset. We need to find a way to make sure that it is good to be good. At the moment, it is not good to be good in this country. Good people tend to be poor and sad. Because it's bad. Have you seen all those Instagram people? They're always happy. I don't think kind of jokes that makes them laugh so much. Anytime they see themselves. The country is burning. The people in charge are always laughing and those are the kind of values we need to look at, seriously. But it is not something that you can just force people to do. We have to consciously work on it to say, let's make it happen. And those who can will have to lead that kind of situation. There's one other big word, which for me, exactly the biggest of all the things you said, and that is incompetence. A lot of us believe that the source of the majority of our problem is corruption. I believe it's incompetence. Because in an underdeveloped country, where roads are needed, houses are needed, everything is needed, even if you want to loot, if you had a bit of sense, you will steal Nigerians' money and they will pray for you in this country. If you can do things. But that's what we are. Yes, as long as you just do a bit of it, they will say thank you. They will say well done. So we have people who, they do not even know how to be corrupt. I have a late uncle who was a bit of a racist actually. Because when my cousin once came up that I was going to marry a Caucasian lady, his point was not that she was white. This kind of white one. You know, and you don't even bring a final one. So we have a situation where the level of corruption is so bad that people are not even doing it competently. Those are the corrupt ones. What about the good people? The good people are not even competent. I have seen people trying to do good things but doing it in a bad way. And that allows corruption to triumph. It causes it, then it allows it to thrive. And we need to look at that issue as well, as a major issue. If we are looking at these causes of corruption, I think it just makes sense to also have a look at what we call the enablers of corruption. We see the causes on one side, very close to them, but slightly different from them, are the enablers of corruption. Enablers are people, offices, events, or forums that allows things to happen, that allows them to thrive, that allows them to operate. When it comes to corruption, the strong enabler of corruption is weak institutions. Institutions that their remit is not clear, they sleep and wake up. Look at the FCC. So they've been there all this, but all of a sudden they decided that mutilating the Naira is bad. They just wake up one day and started doing it. Would it not have been better if they gave 90 days notice to say, so 90 days, we should start dealing with this? Even after they wake up, you have to pray not to be Bobrisky, but to be Cubana. I don't know. Can you see certainty, chaos? Can you see how these things come together late in them? Then, institutions where individuals are stronger than an institution, they struggle. You saw the FCC man saying, I did, and I'm thinking, is it a sole trader business? But they said the man is the righteous man of God, the pastor and so. But you see, that the intentions are not enough. I did. You're talking as if it's a, what if you break your leg tomorrow? What happens to the whole operation? We need to build institutions, not individuals. Some of us applauded when they said, no, we need strong individuals to bring institutions. No, we don't. We don't need to build institutions. Weak people. There is a very interesting thing that they say that if you take a British man, you have a fool. But put two British men together and you have a strong institution straight away. So you have two weak people together, they become strong. You don't have to be strong individuals when you have institutions. Because you're guaranteed that the teacher will not abuse you, that the policeman will not extort you, that when you go to the court of law, the law will triumph. Now, when the law triumphs and they talk about technicalities, we fail to focus on looking at the competence of the prosecutor that allowed the other side to get away with it. And then we go to that moral, judicial aspect we have on fighting corruption. Rather than the anatomical one, to look at, okay, these people are going to dispute the case. Is the prosecutor sharp enough to present the case to convince people? The judges are corrupt. Yes, they're part of us. They're likely to be corrupt. Are we factoring that? Some people went to election. They said they won on social media, and they cheated them in the ballot box. I told them that I warned you before going to factor that in. Don't let anybody come and cry to you again that they cheated them, because we know this country. Start factoring that in. That is competence. It is not enough to cry victim. If you're going to rule a country like Nigeria, maybe you need to learn to factor the whole thing together to know the reality. Yes, change it if you can, but you must know it before you can try to change it or not at all. I need a charge of my laptop. Pressure send itself present. There is also lack of accountability of what we do. And this lack of accountability is very ingrained in us. I argue that from primary school, students should be trained to give feedback on their teachers. Let's start it, from very little things like that. Let us give anonymous feedback to the servants of our pastors and other clerics. Let us, of course, even if people don't have the mindset, they only go to restaurants and fight and go away. They don't pause to say this was good or this was bad. We lack that. It's a cultural thing that we need to imbibe. The idea of keeping people accountable, keeping ourselves accountable. Of course, we don't like to be accountable ourselves. But the idea of knowing that all actions need to be accounted for is something that we need to learn as a people. Because when we have that, it will really drive down all the causes and reduce the enabling of corruption. Close to that is our quest for serendipity. What is that thing we pray for? Unmerited favor. And we do not know the gravity of that sale because we need it. The idea of everybody wanting a special favor from you, or you want it from somebody else, it doesn't help. So we do not think, people do not think in terms of what am I bringing to the table. Somebody wants to sell something to you, and what they ask me is that I've not sold since morning. Help me buy it. It seems innocuous, but can you see when you put it into context like this, you can see that that is part of our problem, you know. Just help me buy it. If I keep buying people the things that they want me to help them buy, I'll become a wholesaler myself of things I do not need. And they do not see it that way. Before we go to government, artisans want you to pay them for their efforts or their intention, not what they've done. Because we're looking for, you know, just help me, just magic to happen. That's why people who have not passed the exam will beg you that you pass them. That's why people who are not qualified for the job will just say somehow it's about their need at home. Because we're looking for this quest for magical, miraculous, serendipity thing. It goes against our ability to then be accountable, to then be transparent. It goes the ability, all the things that work where there's no corruption, certainty, it goes against it because when there is certainty, there will be less serendipity. We talked about politicizing things. Another one close to that. Actually, let me go to sectarianism later. Just like scarcity, there's another issue that leads to corruption, and we have to be realistic about it since we are using this method of anatomy. Is our cost of living. Cost of living. You see, if people are too poor, they're likely to steal or beg. We have to be realistic about it. And I say this because they're leaders today. We have to look at a realistic way. I don't know if it's called, some people call it compassion. I call it empathy for analysis. For you to feel the other side, understand, and know how to operate for them. We need to find a way to be able to meet our cost of living. There are two ways to meet our cost of living. One is to increase what comes to us. The other is to cut what goes out of us. And we can link that to value. Our ability to live a life in a realistic way. We need understanding and models of life that saves us from that desperate atmosphere of having to live beyond our means. We have to think of how to do it. I mean, this is something that affects us a lot. Let me go back to those Instagram people that are always showing off things. And we do not see that they're instigating people to crime. They're living in a make-believe world. And all of a sudden, we've also created a monolithic world where nobody is inspired by diversity, let alone eccentricity anymore. People don't talk about traces of simplicity anymore. You know, there used to be a time when we took note about, so you take the late Haishulani, for example. He would teach his students that he didn't believe in God. He said, nature has created your body in a way that you don't need to pray. We don't applaud the like of Haishulani who wore their khaki everywhere they went to anymore. Everybody wants to wear something golden and shiny. So you have pastors wearing ring and chain as well. And we don't see anything wrong in it. That's the very brave thing. It just seems normal to us. We celebrate consumption without thinking at all. All of a sudden in society, there are people who are rich and we don't know the source of their wealth and we're fine with it. It's just fine, we're just rich. We don't even live, we don't see the process. And I want to say this, it's part of value. We have a society where companies have strange names. Maybe we should make a law so every company should have the name of the owner. Clearly stated there. That would go a long way in changing a lot of our problems. Because this cost of living thing, and say, here's the government. In a country where people earn monthly salary, why should they be paying annual rent? Can we not commonsensically discuss that? Let the landlord feel the pain for 1 or 2 months, they'll get over it. Because if everybody's paying, nobody will be better off. The problem of corruption is that because it's not everybody's paying, some people are benefiting from it. That is why it can thrive. If everybody was living within their means, how many houses in Lagos do you think will cost 400 million? If everybody was truly living exactly within their means, you build it, nobody's going to buy it. It stays. At some point, you come to your senses. The forces of market will drive it down. But because when I say cost of living, I mean high cost. I also mean artificial cost. I think I need to state that clearly. There's some artificial things that we need, that we think we need, that we've come to need. I have news for you ladies. Men don't talk about your bags. You just do it for yourself. You just spend money on. Nobody is, wow, I saw a lady today. You see the fantastic bag she had. Let me bring it for you from the boys' room. Nobody says it. Their hair. Brazilian hair. Nobody knows. Even his Belgian or Togolese. Okay, you are speaking on women. But you see, we've created our cost of living. Some of them are not real. We just forced ourselves into it. That we can easily do without and nothing will happen to us. The problem, I think, it doesn't matter of faith. We're not sure God will reward us. Because I have a feeling that a lot of people have gained God himself. We need to look at it very carefully. We want to do that. Then we have this sectarianism, I thought. This is our idea of everything depends. We're sectarian, we're relative. That means it all depends on who did it. As long as he's an APC man, it must be wrong. Without even looking at the thing. As long as he's a PDP man, it must be wrong. As long as it's one side of the country, you know those people. Those people what? I'm talking about my own car. Never mind those people. The problem I have here is right now. Don't go general with me. I always insist on doing it. We must reduce that. Those are the things that enables them for us. There is also a very strong enabler, which is this is which is corporate Nigeria. I've never seen a country in the world, and I've been to a few places, that has the potential. When I talk about Nigerian potential, it's not never oil and gas. That's it that people say is part of our problem we have. This country is so blessed with what? The countries that are blessed, they're not doing oil and gas. It is people and idea. Nigerian blessing is population, is the people and their ability, its potential to turn into something. I've never seen a country where if you are a corporate entity, if you can manufacture, produce, or sell something, all you need to do is to sell to 100,000 people and you can make $100,000 where businesses are weak. The weakness of corporate Nigeria is one of the problems we have in this country. No country has thrived where the business community is weak, and the Nigerian business community is weak. A4 aviation, let me give you an example. Look at an airline, let's call name and surname, Dana here, that had a problem of landing. They didn't fly, there was no accident. Mr. Minister comes out next day, suspends them. I think their silence is dodgy. If I were MD of that company, I'm in court next day. I'm suing the bugger. How dare you? Let's talk about it. Who are you to just suspend me? Our business do not have that mentality. Why? Maybe because they're dodgy too. Maybe because they have something they're hiding. They cannot stand up to them. And a society where the creators of wealth and job cannot stand up for the wealth and job they create is a society that will fall into corruption at all times. Because it tells you they're frameable. It tells you they are begging for something as well. It tells you their documents are not complete. That is a huge problem. We don't think about it a lot, but the weakness of corporate Nigeria is a very strong problem that enables corruption to happen. We talked about cost of living. Let me link it back to our conformism. These are things that enable corruption. The likes of, we mentioned Taishulari, Ayodeji. Awujobi, Ayodele Awujobi, Chinua Olaoni. So you think people like Chinua Achebe, I think showing how well showing guys body. When everybody was doing something like 93, UP and NLP, they want to do PRP. We do not, everybody is moving in the same directions. I don't know if it's knowledge, if it's courage, if it's a desire. We do not have a desire to be different anymore. And a society that does not encourage diversity and eccentricity is prone to corruption by nature. Because when we're prone to corruption, we all want the same thing. We all go in the same way. We all want the same men. We all want the same. So that by nature it causes that. But if people can stand for different values and different things, it reduces the pressure on a lot of things. If less people want to become senators or governors, and they want to be teachers and lawyers and painters and architects, it just creates a different worldview where there's less tension or foaming. So this conformity is also a problem. People don't read, so they see headline and they repeat the headline. Somebody is a thief because other people said so. Somebody is a saint because other people said so. Okay, I'm mentioning one person too much. Let me just say big that. There is somebody in this country that has gone on record as being Mr. Integrity. And the proof of that integrity, I've been asking for it. It's just something is there in the air, we just know. The current president is known for assembling talents. I'm not exactly saying that, you can't really say, it's not that you. You're laughing. You should be minister, we'll be talking about that. They're not exactly wild dogs with the list of 42 people. You understand what I mean? So we have this kind of attributes that we don't check very well, that we should be questioning. Our conformity and adaptation. Then our reward and recognition system is also a problem. You can link that value, but it's slightly different. We're talking corruption, so we must not look away from somebody like EFCC. Do you know the conversion rate of conviction and refund of EFCC since the day of inception? You'll be shocked. They are way below passable mark. Should we not at some point look at them and say, well, guys, maybe we should look at this thing. What exactly are you doing? Some of the incompetent lawyers are now ministers that they were using to pursue their cases and losing. We need to review our reward and recognition system. You put somebody in a position where the first thing he has to do is go to Wikipedia to see what his position is about, and you expect results. That's going to be a bit dangerous. Why is it so difficult to recognize people who actually know stuff, people who have been doing stuff? I think those are because if you are in a position and you don't know the job you're doing, you're going to cut corners. They say call experts. Yes, what if you don't understand what experts are saying? What do? You nod as if you do. Until they'll say yes, and after this one you sell your mother and then we buy your brother and you say yes, yes. And if you don't want to do that, in doubt you just say no to everything they say, even if it's a good thing. So we have a problem with our reward. Then the society also needs to look through things if we really want it to happen. How can we sort of provide some solutions to this? What are the antidotes we can try to bring out? Number one, I think, very straightforward for everybody, is to review our cost of living. We either increase our revenue or we decrease our spending. But above all, and well, we're forced to do so now, given what we are going through in the country. Instead of moving up and down, I don't get angry if people don't come and see me, but I know who knows what. Who knows the reason of it. To reduce our expenditures where we can, not get carried away. They're helping us. When the law about the mutilation of Naira started, I was one of the first ones to say, who are they to decide our life for us? My money is my money. But later I thought about it. Think about it. I wanted to spray. I saw the advantage and I kept quiet on that law. I think we need to look at our cost of living and think that way. We need to insist on accountability. That's a very crucial thing. We need to find a way. There are some men and women Senate and the House of Representatives, who knows what they do? They said they're back. I didn't even know they were on holiday for long. They came back. So they were on holiday for a whole school term. They need what? To their new chambers, which they don't like. One of them said the place looks like a conference hall. we need to have a very clear idea of what these people are doing. But everybody, it's not just, I picked those ones because of the new cards they bought them. Maybe they were jealous or envy. Because we spend so much on them. But let us start from the teachers of our children, from the estate managers of our estates. Accountability is crucial. If you don't want corruption to thrive, we need to follow up on them. We need to insist on rationality. Sometimes I wonder if thinking is alien to us. People say and do things and you're wondering, is this man okay? Never mind what party he belongs to. Why should he be saying that? Where did he pick up this idea from? This, maybe it's mosquito, maybe it's malaria, maybe it's another issue we don't consider, that affects our thinking process. Somehow we need to go back to insist that people must think on everything we do, even some laws, even some policies that will bring forward. Because some of the things that we do that are not rational are things that leads to corruption, I think. That doesn't make sense. It's not it makes a law. You can say, does this law make sense to you? How exactly are you going to do it? I think it helps us to answer some questions. I also believe that we need to, not everybody, but those who can, the likes of Debo Adeniran here, they need to train more people like them who enjoy confrontation. We need to confront policies and policy makers. Our media people, let's throw them under the bus where somebody's rolling their eyes. We need to learn to confront people, preferably in a polite way. But important is to ask the right questions. Short questions. There's a new generation of media people who become the conversation people themselves. They talk and talk and talk before they just ask the question. Just ask the question. What's the other thing? Leave your thoughts to yourself. Then we also need to reset our reward and recognition system, which we said a lot. We need to wake up corporate Nigeria. Well, with the people, or whoever can. Those who have the clarity of knowledge and the courage of voice to push people above us. But I think in our own little system as well, from our schools to our community, if we can insist in all these things, it has to go on. But we need to insist on the rule of law at all times, that everybody should follow what is right. There's a new show in town. There's this saga of the Yaya Bello thing. Headline: man steals 80 billion. The crowd gives us his head. I was one of the people, by the way. I immediately said, oh yeah. I said, get the money back. get us the money back. But you take a closer look and you now find EFCC is committing a series of blunder. And my house is pounding. Every step they take, I'm seeing the money go away. Every step they take, I'm seeing them turning the man to a hero. Because when we talk of confrontation, if somebody says they have no right to come to my house, so I'm not going to go with them, before you know it, the man is going to turn to what's that thing called? Social disobedience, or what's it called? Civil disobedience. It's very soon he's going to become a prisoner of right, or somebody who's fighting for due diligence. I think we need to get that to stop. What does it cost an institution of the state, an organ of the state, an agency of government to follow things by the book? I can be in a hurry. Government cannot be in a hurry. Due process, so that you get it right. And this idea of due process is not something new with the FCC. It's a lot of time. You see some cases, they give us headline, we're thinking something will happen. Before you know it, nothing. That, for me, has to do with competence of the office, our lack of seeking accountability and following the rule of law. I think accountability will make us check these agencies well. So that when people, I don't understand where, maybe it's the media as well, yes, they've arrested this person. notice that he's hard. I said, well, why did you print him at all? I mean, if you're going to take somebody, I mean, you set his bed, let him spend some time. Otherwise, don't call him in at all. It's showmanship. Yeah. Then he should go to the theater. Where is Oyegele? He said, they should go and act his plays. That's what they should be doing. I suspect there's a lot of untalented people who still want to be famous. And that's why they're doing bad shows. They should just go to a drama school, act it, and who knows, they might get likes on Instagram. And people will like them and will get to know them. And I think these antidotes, as you rightly notice, who are the we? It is all of us. Holding government accountable on top, and we're doing it below ourselves. But there are 3 Ds which I'm going to close with, which I think is crucial in all this. We talk about accountability and we talk about taking things. It is also very important, I think, that we find a way to decentralize authorities. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. We need to get this thing away from offices and from people. We need to decentralize authority. We need to devolve power. And we need to digitalize our system. Digitalizing our system is an antidote that does not allow discretion, chaos, because you go online, like the passport Dr. Yegili wanted to do. You go online, load your thing. Nobody sees you, you don't see them. These are the 10 items you need to bring, you load them, and you check it, it's fine. Corrupt as the same way as we think we're in this country. Look at digital banking, it's working. There are hiccups, but still better than never. It's better than the health system. Digitalization is a way that can help us. Of course, you need competence to make that work. You need to, and if you go back to the list of what we said, competence, sabotage, you need to make sure there's no sabotage. But competence, I argue, can't fight sabotage. Competence, I argue, can predict and overshadow all the good that want to do evil. I think we can close this segment knowing that there is nothing peculiar about us as a people that make us prone to corruption. It's just because we've not done the right things. We've not done what others have done. And because when we say the we, I'll go back to your we, when we talk about we the people, it's a collective thing. The first set of people that needs to make sure we fight corruption are those in charge of authorities. It is yes government, but it's also parents, it's also every one of us. And the way to go about it is insisting on accountability, the rule of law, and to make sure that we're rational in our thoughts. Thank you very much. We go to the conversations. Oh, we go there now. Okay, now we move.
10 minutes more.
As we intended, yes.
10 minutes more. For what? For you or conversation?
Oh, for conversation. Well, we have to rush it.
Seems like you might be joining Professor in that class. And the final person, you'd have seen from the information that we were supposed to have Bala Zakka on stage. He's unfortunately unable to meet up with this engagement. But no worries, we have none other than Mr. Debo Adeniran here in the room for the conversation. Ideally, the first question should be, what is the anatomy of corruption? But if you were here from the beginning, you'd have heard Professor mention myself and a few other fellow culprits as those who are behind corruption itself. So we don't need to answer that question. If you just put us up on the table and dissect, you might find the answer. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for joining us. But perhaps on a more serious note, I will ask the question, right? Professor has done a lovely job in breaking down, speaking on the building blocks, if you like, to this great giant thing that we call corruption. But perhaps the issue is our perception of that word itself. Perhaps if we just said to corrupt, right, then maybe we would step back and think about what corruption is in each situation and how it's affecting the system. So let me start with you, Mr. Nzeakor. I don't know if there's a microphone next to you. Perhaps I should give you the one in my hand. All right, there's one right there.
Thank you. Disconnecting.
Thank you. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am glad to be in your midst to discuss this important issue. You must agree with me that Professor Kila has made our work so easy. So easy because he took the anatomy and dissected corruption, just like a surgeon would dissect a patient on the dissecting table. He took all the issues, the basis, the reasons, the enablers, and even gone to the point of the solution. And when we came in, we were hit by the challenges of corruption. And it's as if they knew that we were going to talk about corruption. So they decided to visit us with the products of corruption, which was blackout. But the beauty is that just like Nigerians, when they persevere, or any people, when they persevere and be determined to fight and overcome corruption, they will. We were determined to have this lecture, and we persevered, and we won. Eventually, they had no other option than to come back to life with their electricity. And that is very instructive about the power of perseverance by a people that really want to have their country to grow. Because from a very long time, we've always been talking about the issues of corruption in Nigeria. In 1975, there was a coup. The basis for that coup was corruption. In 1983, 31st December 1983, there was a coup. The reason for that coup was corruption. And the subsequent coups that took place, everyone would have in his mouth the issue of corruption. Even in the civilian administration of the Second Republic, from 1979 to 1983, Chief Obafemi Awolowo wrote to the then President Alain Shagari and told him that the ship of state was sinking. You can imagine, if the ship was sinking there, today the ship has become Titanic and the base of the ocean, not just sinking, but has gone so down to the bed of the ocean. And that's exactly the challenge we are facing. And that is why the lecture is so opposite. And Professor Kila, the guest lecturer, the keynote speaker, yes. Thank you. The keynote speaker talked about the determination of the people and the need for such determination if we have to overcome this hydra-headed problem of corruption. In all ramifications, the major problem, and that is why it is so essential, because virtually everybody, I use that word most advisably, virtually, and also put it in quotes, virtually everybody has one tendency of corruption or the other. And that is why it is good to bring the issue to the front burner, dissect it in a way and the manner the prof has done, such that those who did not know, just like Nigerians who were spraying the naira and mutilating the naira, that many of them did not know that it amounted to mutilation of the currency. And then even the downfall bus conductor that will squeeze the naira who possibly did not know would now come to the realization that a lot of the things that we feel were normal were actually impugning on the corrupt tendencies of the society. And I want to close this talk by saying that in human environment, it is almost again, advisedly, impossible to wipe out corruption because of the natural tendencies of humanity. What the society does, the society wants to improve and wants to get better, wants to develop, is to, as much as possible, put in place strong institutions to arrest the tendencies and push it to the bare minimum. As much as possible, once it is absolutely pressed down, such that the tendencies that are positive will be more than the tendencies that are negative. That way, society gets better. And I want to believe that with this lecture, implementation of the propositions of the lecturer, that we should be having a much better country. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nzeakor. Mr. Adeniran, a pointed question. He used virtually and advisedly in quote, trusts a man of the law to do so, very specific with words. Do you consider yourself a corrupt person? Are you a corrupt Nigerian?
We get there. Because
No,
at some point,
I have a series of questions
don't worry,
on the tail of this.
you're going to get it.
Okay.
At some point, people will generally say that everybody is corrupt. But I tell you that I did a paper in 2019.
Mr. Adeniran, let me interrupt you. I'll let you come back to it. I want you to speak for yourself, Debo Adeniran.
I'm
As
speaking
an,
for
are
myself.
you an upstanding Nigerian?
I'm in Nigeria.
Probably not upstanding.
The truth is that I will not rate myself. I will ask the audience, those who are watching me, to rate whichever way. But then when the end brings you up, you know, the society will determine whether you are upstanding or you are crawling or whatever. But like I told you, somehow, even if you don't want to perpetrate corruption, the society may force you to go that way because you are a lone voice, or maybe you are one of the few who will not surrender to corruption, but you can be co-opted. But then, I first and foremost need to thank Professor Kila. He has killed it, the anatomy of corruption. Corruption can be personified. You have different faces, you have different types, different tribes, different races, people with different creeds, and so on and so forth. They are corruption. But then, you can now classify them. For example, there are some people who don't need to perpetrate corruption. Everything they need has been given to them by the society. They don't have to buy anything for themselves. You build the house for them, buy their cars, pay for their children's school fees, pay for their healthcare delivery, and they still steal the money. No? Those are kleptomania. They must still need. So those people are the highest level of our government. You've given them everything, all the comforts they need. Private jets, luxurious cars, and all of it. They still steal. What are they stealing for? Then you still have, so lower to that, because I don't want to waste your time, you know. Those are the kleptomania. Then you have those who are gluttons. Everything they also need, they've gotten. But they want to eat more than their fair share of the ration. So they have eaten to their fill, but they can never be satisfied. They are gluttons. So those can be classified as glutonic corrupt elements who perform, who practice glutonic corruption. Then there are some who react to kleptomaniac and gluttons. That if my boss did it, why can't I do it? And they watch their bosses perpetrating corruption. So they know that the boss will not have moral standing to criticize them for practicing corruption. As a matter of fact, they help their bosses. Because sometimes the bosses will tell you that I don't sign checks. But then all the money goes into their pocket. How did they make it? They are subordinate. And sometimes when I criticize some of our anti-corruption agencies, I tell them, you arrested only one person for embezzling as much as 85 or something billion naira. And it's only one person that is answering questions on that. How come? Is it possible? Somebody must have raised the vouchers. Somebody must have raised the checks and the rest of them. So all of these people will react to the corruption at a higher level. They will not perpetrate their own corruption and they expand their mouth beyond what they should consume. Then later, below it, you also have what you can call petty corruption. Lawyers, I'm surrounded by lawyers. They call it sometimes petty larceny and all. Then you have, and so this can also be classified into two, and that is where when people say everybody's corrupt from, you have moral corruption. Okay? Somehow you tell lies. In your anecdotes, because you want to convince your audience, all of the stories you are telling are fiction. They are fictitious. They are not true. You can't prove that they are true. And when you say that telling lies is a corruption. It's a form of corruption. So you turn out to be part and parcel of what you call, moral corruption. But then you can classify that into two. There are true corruption, there are pseudo-corruption. True corruption, generally at the level of Amnesty International, which was adopted by CAPOR, that's Central for Corruption and Open Leadership, in 2016, that corruption is any act of dishonesty. Any act of dishonesty, doesn't matter whether it's big or small, that can be classified into, what do you call it now? I forgot. I will remember later. Then you have wholesale corruption, you have retail corruption. And at the end of the day, when the corruption you perpetrate, okay, I was talking about pseudo-corruption and true corruption. Pseudo-corruption are those that you necessarily have to do to salvage one or the society from any kind of jeopardy. Because if you, for example, if a killer gets into this place now, you say, who's Libros? You know that this one is a killer that want to kill me. Who is it among us who will say we have Libros here? You won't say it. And by keeping quiet, you have told a lie. And if lying is petty corruption, you have committed it. That is pseudo-corruption. It is not real corruption because you save somebody's life. But when you commit any corruption, no matter how little, to benefit yourself or your family, Prof talked about, what do we call it now? When you, man knows man, what's the name that is called? Influence, no, I don't. You mentioned the name. Well, maybe I'm getting older. I don't know. So, you benefit yourself or those that you are related with. Nepotism. Okay? You have spaces for job. Okay, there are so many people that are qualified for it. You interviewed everybody. You know that the person you knew doesn't measure up to certain categories of interviewees, those who attended the interview. But because you knew the person, or you know the person's father, or you know somebody is your friend's friend, and you gain the job. That is corruption. And it is true corruption, even if it's not benefiting you. Prof also alluded to it. Even if you are not benefiting, that is true corruption. But when you perpetrate it in such a way that, so he has analyzed incentives for corruption. You must have an environment that accommodates corruption. And that is why those who are corrupt will not want to work with honest people. Even when they conduct their own interview, they will look at your propensity to tell lies, to steal, to collaborate, with dishonest people. And at the end of the day, you now have a ring of corrupt elements within the space you are superintending over. And that is why corruption becomes pervasive. So when you say everybody is corrupt, of course, because I do not, sometimes if there's fire, okay, you do not want to drive into it. But the red lamp has not passed. Okay? So you have to beat the lamp so that you go. So there are some. So when you say that, whether somebody is upright, whether it's not, maybe I would have driven through the fire, or maybe I would have not drawn the one-way traffic, even when a petroleum-laden trailer is burning. Maybe I would have still ran into it. So it is then the society will not decide, is this true corruption or pseudo-corruption? Thank you.
Thank you. I take your point, right? I do understand it. I wonder in the room, how many people, when they say that all Nigerians are corrupt, how many people say not me? They won't say. Nobody here. You say not me. All right. How many people have ever said I am Nigeria, or Nigeria is the Nigerians, Nigerians are Nigeria? But you agree that Nigeria is corrupt. So if you agree Nigeria is corrupt and you're a Nigerian, what does that make you? A corrupt person? Alright, so
by association.
I asked the question simply because I do wonder if the perception of corruption, if you decide that you are corrupt, right, you hit a red light like you said, and you know it was wrong, so you try to course correct. So if we accept that we are corrupt Nigerians, we internalize it in a way, but we know that it's right, those of us in this room who want to see better, would that make it easier to engage with the corruption and actually make it to conform the system back to the way it was designed? You, Mr. Shoma.
Thank you. And even though I didn't expect I was going to sit down here today, but it's a privilege sitting in your midst. And I listened to Prof. Talk about not just the anatomy of corruption, but the morbid anatomy of corruption in Nigeria. And one will tend to ask, and he outlined all the various factors, and you see that all of them are prevalent in our midst. You know, when you talk about all the factors that contribute, it's as if it's just talking is defining Nigeria. You know, lack, the attitude and the idea of creating superhumans instead of super institutions is always with us. That non-availability of whatever, whether services, whether infrastructure, whether governance, it is with us. And all of the factors you mentioned, so you can see them. You don't have to go to Abuja to identify them. They are with us every day. And then, in attempting to fight, because I'm trying to answer your question, and attempting to fight, to create institutions to say, yes, you call that, this is an institution that is to fight corruption. And without addressing those, indices that enables corruption,
You can't fight corruption. So we're just going to be living it. Because even that institution also will be enmeshed in the system, in the lack, in the nepotism, in the tendency to want to cut corners, and in the non-availability of opportunities. And so that institution itself will be corrupt. So that's why every day we live that life. To take your question, and we're living the life. And then you have a few people trying to avoid the Kakor define the passive and what do you call the other one again now? So the pseudo corruption. You find people who try, to avoid the real corruption, and then the pseudo ones if you cannot avoid it, because the society you live in, makes it possible for this pseudo corruption to confront you every day. So what do? We go back to Pro's morbid anatomy of corruption and the solutions he gave. Once you have water, he gave example with elaborate example with buckets of water. You don't even need to go into that. Water in your house. If you have your tap running 24/7, you discover that you don't need buckets. You don't need buckets to stop. But the moment you know that there will be no light, and once there is no light, that water will run. Subconsciously, you want to keep water in your buckets. If you go to Netherlands, their taxes are about 60%. And this 40% that is remaining, you really don't need it, because that tax is used to provide, opportunities. That's talking about the lack that Prof talked about. So, I give you, he gave an example with water, and I'm narrowing it down to your everyday house. Subconsciously, if you know that growing up under Awolowo, for example, my education was free. I was at home when somebody came to give my uncle money, say, take for that thing that you did to me. He said, no, I'm just doing my job. Because he didn't have to worry about my school fees. We were living in government quarters, and the house was furnished. He had a 504 car, the wife had a Volkswagen. He didn't need to bother about living out cheap to come stay in Lagos. But the moment he retired and there was lack, and he had to travel from Auchi to Benin for verification, and from Benin to Ibadan, and some of his colleagues died, he called all of us and said, never in your life should you dream of working in a government organization. So these are the things, the indices that fan the embers of corruption. And then now coming, I want to think about the two angles. Now coming to the agency, you now see it's so prevalent. You are not addressing the basic things that is causing it. You now say, okay, let us, to meet international best practice, let us create an institution, because the world wants an institution that will fight corruption. Let us create the EFCC, fantastic name, ICPC, and then you create such an organization and say fight corruption. You bring a chairman, and like take it from Prof also, who says he will have a chairman who will have to read Wikipedia to know the functions of his office. Put in Prof. And you give him so much power. I also will draw an analogy with the people that you're copying, how they fight theirs, apart from providing, ensuring that those indices are absent. When they create such an organization, they say, no, the tendency for you to be corrupt will be there. And that's why you see, which Lagos State government also has introduced. An officer is going out to carry out an arrest, or is going out for a function. He has body cameras. It is not him that is going to review those body cameras. What the institution is basically doing, you have tendency to compromise your office. Even though I'm not there with you, I want to be sure that you follow the rules. It brings me back to Prof's violation of the rule of law. You comply with the rule of law because in prosecuting corruption, there are laid down rules that must be complied with. And the law will not close its eyes to, oh yes, the man is corrupt. But the law will also look at how did you catch him? Did you follow the laid down rules in catching him? But the layman here will say it's technicality. No. What the law is simply doing is to ensure that, like we say in law, it is better for 99 armed robbers to go free than for one innocent person to be convicted for an offense he did not commit. And those institutions, sorry, I'm running up on it. Those institutions, they also have internal mechanism for checkmating them. And that's why they say, look, when you hear lawyers say abuse of court process, abuse of court process, abuse of court process, if I'm in court with you over a civil matter and you're investigating me, you must exhaust that civil matter you have with me before you fight criminal charges. That's the position of the law. But here, why you should ask yourself, why is it that we hear sensational headlines? Kakor is here with me also. I will give you an instance in rounding up. Otumba Benga was the former governor of Ogun State. EFCC headline, Otumba Benga steals 60 billion naira. And the crowd went wild. I was in Abeokuta one day and I went to court. And coincidentally in court 2, the matter was in court 2. And when they read the charge, it was 200 million. EFCC had amended the charge to 200 million. But the crowd went with 60 billion. And at the end of the day, they are not able to establish even the 200 million because they said the money was given to a friend of his. And in the eye of the public, the man has been convicted. We have all convicted him. And that's why, that's what the world will run with. Nigerians are corrupt. And at the end, because the institution that you have are not super institution, you have Superman, Novo Ribadu, Lamode, what's the current Pastor Lukoyede, and all of that. And they just go make so much noise in the media. At the end of the day, the law and the rule of law is not complied with. Why the government is not providing the indices that will enable you to live upright, the institution that also is to fight if you don't live upright also do not have the indices. And then the last one, the religious body, is a connivance. Sorry, Prof mentioned this in person. And so when they deprive you, the government takes, and they call the religious body in the night and they give them their 10%, and then the religious body sell hope to you. Don't worry, be hopeful. God will provide. And so when you also now steal yours, you say, God has given me mine. And that ends, at the end of the day, people see us and say, we are all corrupt. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shoma. I'm just going to do one final round of questions before I come to the audience. Perhaps you want to engage. It's interesting, the EFCC example, which started with Professor Kila, right? The current EFCC chair is supposed to be a lawyer in himself, right? So one would expect that over the next 5 years of his term, that perhaps they will sharpen their processes such that we're getting more convictions than not, and not sensational headlines, as you said. But I do want to come back to each of you regarding the individual Nigerian, because that's where my issue is. Someone mentioned the 80s earlier and the corruption we saw with going to courts to swear that their children were XYZ age. It's interesting because if you read the accounts of military era then, they tell you that IBB was essentially the mastermind behind institutionalizing corruption. And you can draw a direct connection between them and what we have today. We've talked about, someone else mentioned international passports and the system, the current system in place. Who are these civil servants that are helping to corrupt the system? Someone said that the main person, the minister is taken to court or the head of the agency and asked, what about the other people that helped? Who are they? My father was a civil servant. I have a friend whose mother works in the ESCC. I have friends who work in government, right? There are many of us, if we take a survey of the room, you also know one or two people, or maybe you yourself are in government, but your name is not the big name, right? So I'm coming back to the singular entity that helps to perpetuate this corruption that we complain about in our country. My question now is how to deal with it. And that's why I asked if you are corrupt, but it's not about you personally. It's across the room. It's a singular question to all of us. Are you corrupt? And if the answer is yes, then how do we fix it? Because you sit next to the corrupt people. Do you not? You sit next to the person who went to give their tithe in church and did praise report and in the mosques who are contributing to building the next holy chapel or whatever it is. So, Mr. Nzeakor, I'm throwing it back at you, right? Think about the singular entity. Let's stop with the big guys, the institutions and whatnot. Maybe that's where we start. How do we solve that problem? And we'll just do this, by the way, a quick round, very briefly, maybe two minutes, so that we can get engagement.
Thank you. It's very critical to ask this kind of question. There's a generalization that all has gone foul of the law. It's so overgeneralized. But there's an Igbo adage that says, everybody goes to the small shrub that produces the pepper. You know the pepper, you can't call it a tree. The pepper plant is like a shrub. Very accessible to anybody, even a toddler, to go and pluck pepper. But anybody who is seen plucking pepper, everybody goes there to pluck pepper. But it's only those who are seen or caught plucking pepper that are described as pepper thieves. An old English poet said that every man is a rogue. But it's only he who is caught is a thief. If you put that in context, yes, it is good to say we are not all corrupt. And when we say so, it is not peculiar about Nigeria. The tendency of human beings as mortals, mere mortals, is such that every human being has a natural, inalienable tendency towards corruption. And if you look at the anatomy of corruption extended by liberals as the morbid anatomy of corruption as expounded by Professor Kila, you'll find out that in all the definitions of what makes up corruption, nobody is free. Nobody. So there's no basis asking anybody, oh, are you corrupt? Because until you catch the person around the pepper plant,
Free until proven guilty.
around the pepper plant,
Innocent until
and that is why the law has said you are innocent
until
you are proven guilty. It is that natural concept that has crept into the laws, and it's a natural law, and it's more or less a universal law. And that is why we say that in order to make sure that you minimize the number of people you catch around the pepper plant, let the institutions be strong enough. The dissuasive factors will be so much that moral suasion will play very little role.
Yes.
Because Jeremy Bentham will always tell you, the economist Jeremy Bentham will tell you that what is important to every human being is that there is greatest good for the greater number of people, and that the pleasure-pain principle is what drives natural laws. Human beings have the tendency to avoid pain and also the tendency to cluster towards pleasure. That is essentially what the law does.
Thank you. These institutions that we all agree to that need to be strong, how how are these institutions created? And if we say the law is the same law that we're seeing broken left, right, and center, then we say that another institution is needed to checkmate and make sure that you drag back. We talk about checks and balances a lot. What are the three, in every democracy, what are the three arms that check themselves and balance themselves? Then look at it in Nigeria. What's it made up of?
Well, thank you very much once again. What I didn't name the other time is social corruption, which is incidental corruption. And that is what brings so many people into it without their own corruption. You said your dad, civil servant, you have a friend, EFCC and all that. There is this tendency that you are associating with somebody who has power over your economic well-being. And you realize that the situation in the country is such that once you lose one, you will lose, once you lose your means of survival, your economic activity, you may lose your life or somebody else may lose their lives. So you won't want to avoid those who have the power over your remaining at your job stage or leaving. So you are between the devil and the deep pit. So you want to preserve yourself. You want to preserve your dependence. So you choose the devil because you don't want to die in the deep pit. That is the problem. And that is what coerces so many people into corrupt enclave. And that is why sometimes when you say that somebody is clean, how clean is it?
Integrity is the word.
So when you look at integrity, who is the main man that has the power to create or kind of modify the working or social environment, and that is why it's social corruption. Some people, for example, have created dependency on themselves. Some people have produced children, then economy nosedive. Now, their salary can no longer take care of their familiar needs. They have social obligations that they have to meet. Now, they don't want to lose their job. So, they are hedged in. And that is where the society, becomes problematic. Living in a society becomes problematic. How do I choose? Now, you also have those that are manifestly corrupt, knowing that their salary. There was a former head of state he built a library for about 7 billion. You will help me, you are a lawyer. So we now calculated that he was 70 years old and his salary wasn't up to 3 million naira per month. We now calculated that, look, if he had been earning 3 million naira per month for 70 years, he wouldn't have been able to put 7 billion naira together. It is apparent. We wrote a petition, we went to EFCC. The EFCC, they actually interrogated him. If you read his book, you are going to find the outcome. But they didn't invite us to come and justify, to come and even adopt our petition. Okay? So this is how institutions themselves, even when you talk about being strong, how strong? Because look, EFCC is a strong institution by its own law. They can pry into somebody's lifestyle. If it is above his, what do you call it now, legitimate income, and they can call him to question. But then the instrument is strong, the people that are driving it are weak. So you need strong people to drive strong institutions. And we need, because even if the law is there, of course you have lawyers, they will defend the accused, they will defend the defendant, they will be the one that is sitting in the bench. So it's a conspiracy against the people that they normally. So when you now see all of this, you now wonder, why is it that we have not been able to stamp out corruption in our society? The reason is that the society are not implementing the laws they made for themselves. And those that they put in charge are not called to question. They don't ask for accountability. They don't hold them to account. And when they don't hold them to account, they now resort to moralism. Okay? And why must you do that? Has he bribed you? And all of that. Then you want to say that, oh, he didn't bribe you, and you want to prove it. You waste so much time proving that you are not bribed to defend the rule of law. And you say checks and balances. Who is checking who? Look at the legislature. Look at the judiciary in Nigeria. A whole lot of them, you know what they owe, bigger than their regular take-home pay. So, but some people are institutionally impoverished. Their take-home pay cannot take them home. So the inequality now creates that propensity to commit corruption crimes. To break it down is that a people united cannot be defeated. But we are not united. We have to reorganize ourselves. We have to reorientate ourselves. This moral rearmament have to be brought into our society. Laws have to be implemented. Offenders have to be punished. Not only just punish, slap on the wrist punishment. It has to be deterrent punishment. And when they are punished, the prerogative of mercy should not come to play. Like some 2 former governors that were convicted.
They were old.
Or 3 old. They claimed they were old. They didn't know that they are growing old when they were committing the crimes 11 or 13 years earlier. You see, when you meet old people and the way and you say should you give you some wisdom, you don't know whether he grew up being stupid or being crooked. So these are the kind of thing that is making corruption to be intractable in our society. I believe that everybody needs to join hands. We reorganize our society. We reorientate the public. We reorientate those who are holding position of authorities and de-emphasize the power of wealth, in our society and make our laws work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Adeniran. Finally, Mr. Sherman, because I know that you've got quite a few reactions to what's been said already. Yes. Keeping focus, right? One thing, questions around the responsibility that comes with demanding accountability. Professor Kila also mentioned that earlier. How it's not an easy task, right? Eternal vigilance is very much what defines demanding accountability. And perhaps as you come to the matter of institutions, remember that in the case of the white lion, who has been renamed many times now, white cockroach, I forget how many things they've renamed him. But in that case, you talked about the institution that is the Nigerian police force, and many people pointed out that the police detail assigned to him helped to defend him against another institution, which also included police officers who were there to carry out something of the sort. So I'll get your final thoughts.
Yeah. All of these, when we talk about corruption, the tendency to always look at the leaders and leave out ourselves, it's very prevalent. We always talk about, we are giving so much to our leaders, and then we say, democracy. Look, let me tell you, in the Arab world, they steal also. Yes, they are very corrupt also. But the difference is that they ensure that their people do not lack. The people do not lack. So you see them play very expensive play. They buy tigers, they buy flashy cars. Where do you think this money come from? But they ensure that the basics are provided for every other person. When they steal, they don't take it out. to spend it right there. And it brings me back to Professor Kila's, availability for all. If it's available for all, I can tell you there are some people, all they just want is that small 3-bedroom flat, water is running, there is lights at school for their children, and they go to work and come back in the evening, they sit down, hang out with their friends, play ball, drink beer, and that's all they want. They think that being a Dangote is too much trouble. Or even going to the House of Assembly, it's something that is stressful. They don't want it. And so that is the difference with, and I gave you an example just now with the water, just water in your house. So if we understand it from that point of view, you won't understand, you won't see the opportunity to work in EFCC as a privilege. There won't be need for me to say, I want to go beg you because you work in EFCC. And then also, attached to that is, I was being questioned in London by policemen. I didn't know I was being questioned. I was being interviewed or I was being investigated. I didn't know. It was a chat. And then after some time, we asked me, we came with a cup of coffee, a cup of tea. I was so relaxed. And at the end of the day, they told me, they apologized to me and gave me a voucher of £200 for my time. It was at the airport. And when I told my friend, he said, when next you go travel again? I want me to investigate me like that. But here, as lawyers, friend Nzeakor is here. The moment the FCC invites you, you file enforcement of fundamental rights. Do you know why? Because the hostility of the investigating officer. And the next thing, that's why Nigeria will be ready to bribe a policeman instead of being deprived of his rights. Say, I will lock you up. I will lock up the bagger. And then that stigmatization, you are my suspects. You are an accused person. And so if you don't understand this terminology, you are scared. My rights about to be deprived. And it also happens to leadership. A man who is president, and then you tell him, I want to detain you. His lawyer will say, no, we have to go for enforcement of fundamental rights. But the problem is when it is the leader who is enforcing his fundamental rights, people like Nzeakor will quarrel. But if it is me, you say, oh, no, he's fighting for his rights, human rights. So that's why.
Why the difference? That's not correct.
Exactly. Why the difference? That's why, as an agency who is saddled with the responsibility of checking crime, you look at the society you live in, where there is so much lack, to the extent that even you getting the job, sometimes it is through the bearer is from me, please employ him. He's tired of sitting at home. Meanwhile, your colleague who is brighter, who doesn't have somebody who will write the bearers from me, he's probably riding Okada. So when you now get to that, at that same colleagues, I was driving Sunday and last month official were, a man during this point crisis, he had driven past the filling station and then he saw that the queue was short. He quickly tried to reverse and last man stopped him and then entered his car. He must get to the office. And I told the last man, I said, well, first thing I said, that's why I also disagree with Nzeakor and united. We can never be united. And I told him, I said, look, well, he's a Yoruba man like you. I am not Yoruba. But here I am pleading for him. Pleading for a Yoruba man before a Yoruba man. There is fuel scarcity. You need to understand. Maybe before he goes to Anthony to turn and come back here, this queue would have been something else. So that is why so allow him. The man looked at me, shook his head, and came down from the car and left. God didn't create us as Nigeria. That's why you came from a tribe that is unique and peculiar to you. And let me also tell you.
One can argue God didn't create you as Yoruba either. Or Igbo.
No. I came from a tribe. That tribe is unique.
It's what it taught you that.
See, I didn't. When called Nigeria. It's people's creation. When you came into a family. But I don't want to digress, so that I don't mean. And so, when you, in those areas, when people tell you, oh, the whites or the Western have brought civilization to us, I disagree. Ifa came before Socrates. If you read their works, but because we have abandoned ours and embraced that which is not ours, and that's why now this term corruption also became part of us. Growing up also, I always go back to growing up. We travel from Okbela to Akbede. We see people selling plantain. You won't see anybody, you see the plantain with 5 stones. You don't travel. You will drop maybe 50 kobo and pick the plantain and go. But today, with the proliferation of churches and mosques, you look here, you look there, there is nobody, you pick one and you move. So, it is not just about the agencies, it is also about the non-availability of these opportunities. And that's why it brings me back to, sorry, my brother here, when they were in opposition, they told us everything that is good with the government, everything that can be done to make Nigeria work. But now they're in government, they're doing the opposite of what they so it brings me back to why do we have lack? Why is it not enough? Because you take everything, you take it to the top, and you share from there. It will never get down. But when we all, as we're here now, you say whatever we gather here, we share here, and then you keep a percentage to give to those there who oversees the properties. There will be enough to go around. And you won't have to chase corruption. Gradually, you will see it just phase out. And that's why also these people, and then, even in the Western world that we're talking about, that Professor Kila talked about, they also have the tendency to be corrupt. That is why a policeman who is going out will wear a body cam, so that another policeman in another department will review what they did. But here, we say, oh no, look, but God is with you. You should do it because God is watching you.
One would argue if you implement that here, the policeman who is watching the camera will tell you it's Photoshop and go somewhere else.
No, because here, those policemen you are seeing, the command control is close. You don't need to go to Abuja. Yes. Police Service Commission are overburdened. And some people have argued that no, we don't need state police. No, we do.
That's a separate conversation.
Yes, no, it's the same conversation of fighting corruption. These are institutions. Because if you say because governors will use it, it is like you said, it is all of us. My brother, your sister, your relations. So, the same governors are using police today. So, we need to, Professor Kila talked about it also, decentralization of governance. So, when it is decentralized, the corporate entity will be smaller to manage. He talks about the solutions, corporate Nigeria. And that's when it's smaller to manage, the tendency not to compromise will not be there. And so if I know that the budget for managing the road in my local government is domiciled in the local government chairman, all of us can decide today with the go chairman office. But if it's in Abuja, before we get to toll gate, they probably call Oloye. Oloye, are you sure? The brother's not Yoruba man. Are you sure it's not? So these are the challenges. We need to ensure that the entity is smaller to manage and there's availability and reduce and you'll be shocked. Do you know, okay, sorry, lastly, in Lagos State, commissioners, PAMSEC and co, don't you know that they steal also? But people, the attention is not so much on them because Lagos has enough. If you try it in Edo State, the palace and everybody will gather in your house. So once you have enough and it goes round and people are seeing it, that's why Fashola, when Fashola started building roads in Lagos, people voluntarily went to pay taxes that I'm seeing what my money is doing. So even if your leaders are stealing, you will see that what they're using it for, you will see it here. And then everybody gradually will adjust and will take dressing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shomola. I'll just very quickly take questions. I see a hand in the back. I see 4 hands. So the gentleman in glasses, the lady right in front of him, then I'll come to this row. I'm going by how I saw the hands go up. So there's a gentleman at the furthest end. Ladies first, all right. I've been over. Actually, it's more than ladies first. Okay, she's just taking the phone call.
I need to share something from what the speaker said and also from discussions we've had last year, different issues. What you said about Saudi Arabia interests me. And last year, we had this statement after the United Nations meeting. Somebody said 5 sentences that would have made President Tinubu's speech, Nigeria's Marshall Plan, nay Africans. I don't know if any of you have seen this. He says, we thank Mr. President for a good speech at the UN. 5 missing sentences would have transformed the good speech to a great transformational Marshall Plan. Saying, because what you said about Saudi Arabia, they have plenty of money, but they spend it for their people. If we have a modification, and don't forget, at the time of Muritala, when he became head of state, he gave us all his properties in Kano. Oh, yes. And people followed. They were prepared to follow him. That's why when they killed him in February, people were. And then, was there another, even when President Obasanjo came back again, people had expected that he would show some leadership.
Yes.
And so let me continue with what this is. I've been a shrewd and resourceful Nigerian businessman, playing the game by its rules of the jungle, observing in breach, often in connivance with leading global corporations and governments represented here. A path by which I've become a man of immense means. Today, voluntarily and without any pressure, I'm repatriating X billion, 95% of my foreign assets for investment in a Nigerian bond. Just wait. We are dreaming. Honestly, this bond will be invested in transforming Nigeria's education and health to continental leadership using global standards. It will also be used to lift the economy by making it Africa's food basket. Its economic and technological leader targeting a median per capita GDP of $5,000 in 10 years. I invite all former presidents, civil servants, both serving and retired, businessmen, and all at their diaspora to follow my example by repatriating flight capital and directing their legitimate foreign savings and borrowings to this privately managed Niger bond to place Nigeria in its proper place in the world. I also call on the United Nations to lead a new world order to make it impossible for flight capital, often proceeds of corruption, to find havens in the global financial capitals of the world, subjecting Africa and its citizens to needless misery. This was circulated last year. And from what he said, unless everybody keeps on leadership is the problem, leadership is the problem. Let us agree that President Tinubu decides today to call people to say, let's come together. They will get more than 3 trillion in naira and also in dollars. And you can jumpstart your economy. For those of you, whether APC or PDP, think about it. Or AP, I don't know.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Thank you, ma'am. So, just very quickly, because I've seen more hands come up, we'll take the gentleman. We'll come back to the lady who's somewhere in the middle with glasses as well. Please identify yourself.
You can hear me. My name is Debo Adeniran. I'm a journalist. My discourse is going to come from two perspectives. I am a journalist. By virtue of what I do, I am an avid student of literature. I read a lot. And in course of our discourse, a Norwegian author came to my mind. His name is Eric Benson. And he wrote a play called An Enemy of the People. And the title, the popular phrase in the book says that the enemy of the people is anyone who decides to stand alone, even though when he's saying the right thing. Now, we're all here to talk about possible solutions. But let's talk about the gatekeepers. Let's talk about reward, motivation, and action. All right, so I'm a young guy who is just new in the industry, and you have someone of your age who is walking away with a certain amount of money that your salary cannot make in 1 year. With what you earn, with what I earn, if you ask me, can I afford a house of 7 million naira by the end of the year? I would say no. And so, in the center of all these things, this is a burden we carry for those who decide to hold on to the right thing. But let's not talk about the gatekeepers. Let's talk about the motivation for those who are doing the right thing. And let's stress more the role of the family. But saying that, okay, so I don't want you to tamper with WAEC before you write A's. I just want you to go write your exam and have it. I'm not going to call anybody for you. I'm just going to tell you, here is a place they need a job. They need someone who can do something. Just go give it a try. So let's talk about the gatekeepers, and let's stress more about reward, motivation, and action. And let's mention the sustainability in 3 years to see what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Okay, so lastly, let me add to this.
Very quickly.
Yeah, a colleague in the job, more like a senior colleague, Chef Molatunji, used to be the editor for Feast News, wrote a report last month, probably like 3 months. Now, he claimed he saw something about Gbajabiamila. Guess what? The outlet came back behind to go apologize to him, and he resigned. Motivation, reward, and action. He claimed, this is what I saw, and I'm very sure this is of this thing. And the owner of the outlet say, okay, you have to go, and you go apologize. How do we say the truth?
There's a lady right in front.
Yeah, please permit me to sit down. I'm Dr. Fola Rodgers. We listened to Professor Kila talking about...
Perhaps we'll give you my microphone. It seems to be steadier.
I think it's working. It's
all
working.
right.
It's
Please
working.
go ahead.
I think it depends on how you put it close to your mouth. Am I okay now?
Yes, yes.
Now, we listened to Professor Kila. He talked about factors, reasons why we have corruption, and putting it together. I know that we have value-based approaches. I mean, in terms of solution, we have compliance-based ones, and so on and so forth. Now, Uncle Adeniran talked about pseudo corruption, which is about like aiding and abetting. But I'm wondering, at that level, is there nothing we can do about creating awareness and putting in participation, whereby somehow, sometime, we can have whistleblowers, as we have in England or in other parts of the world? I just want us to look at that and see how that can help. If someone, your boss, 2 levels above, has been able to steal 80 billion, and then you down there prepare the voucher and so on and so forth, what kind of awareness or participation can we put in place while we are trying to build this strong institution or reorientate the society, as Mr. Adeniran said, so much so that we can have people with confidence who can at least be, whistleblowers. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll do, there's a lady behind her actually. Let's just take that, then we'll come back to this side of the room.
deal with inefficiencies, it's how we deal with deprivation, it's how we deal with everything. And I don't know. Shall we get there? Will we get there?
Thank you. Come to this side of the room, and we'll just take the contributions and the questions before we come back to the panel, so we get the response to the good doctor's question. And that question that was asked, maybe we'll come back 50 years and give you a response.
Good afternoon. My name is Bernard. I'm a journalist, like the young man from behind. Just to ride on one of the jokes that was thrown there, I know my way from Ukwela to exactly, because I'm from Edo State as well. But you know, going forward, Barrister Oshoma made mention of something earlier about what happens in the Middle East as regards what happens in Nigeria here, where they also have corruption, but the people are satisfied. You know, so even though there's corruption, it doesn't show and it's not amplified. My question now is it okay to have corruption as long as the people are satisfied? And I'm going to bring it into context here in Nigeria. We've come to see several, and I think now it's in practice, where people leave government having embezzled a lot and knowing that the way out or the way forward is to use a fraction of what they have embezzled to empower the people, such that the people are blinded and deafened to the fact that this is just a fraction of what has been taken away from us. If we had the most of this, our lives would have been better. So you have ex-governors, ex-public servants, taking what they have embezzled, coming back to the country, establishing companies, factories, and even schools, which is now the new one, showing that they are providing amenities and facilities to the people. So should we allow that as corruption, knowing that at the end, it is better for them to bring these stolen monies back and ensure that we get the barest minimum? I strongly believe we deserve more than the barest minimum. And that's one. Secondly, it's just quick.
I need you to direct your questions to specific people. And please don't say to everybody.
Yes.
This is from Mr. Oshoma.
I spoke
Go
to
ahead.
Barrister Oshoma. And well, secondly, just like the lady who spoke earlier has said, I think the most realistic way forward, and it has been emphasized already for the country, because we will have this conversation over and over again. I'm already typing out the script for this report, and I'm seeing that it's almost unending, right? I think the way forward is to go back to morals and values. And unfortunately, taking it back to morals and values, we have to take it back to the kindergarten stage, which is still going back to what Barrister Oshoma said earlier. We would need to, at some point, jettison some of the things that we have imbibed before. And there's a saying I read that said, the educated people of the 21st century are not those who can read and write, but those who can, or who have learned, can unlearn and then relearn. And so we have to go back to the kindergarten age, because even from primary school, children are corrupt as well. They've been exposed to pseudo-corruption, unfortunately. So I'll end by saying, I've studied a few literature from around the globe, not so much, but I've come to see that of almost all the civilizations still present on Earth, the Asians, and by Asians I mean the key Asians, Koreans, the Chinese, the Japanese, I'll mention those three, are still the ones that are holding, they are holding their moral values very high, because their culture, thank you very much, because they still practice a lot of what they have been practicing before. They have children who, before learning how to read and write, they first learn how to greet, how to help, how to wash their own toilets. Until we get back there, the issue of corruption will continue to be endemic. So unfortunately, not us, not our children, but perhaps the kindergarten ages. And this goes back to the teachers and back to the morals that we had before the arrival of the colonizers. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's take another question. Please go ahead. We'll come back. Actually, they missed the front row. There's been a reason. We'll come back. Promise. I will ask that the rest of us will keep it as brief as possible. Right? And if it's a contribution you have, then identify that it's a contribution and not a question. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cynthia, Analyst. Okay, so why Crawford?
Unfortunate, Professor, you've been in every facet of this conversation.
So when Crawford was, giving his speech, he made mention that one of the antidotes to corruption in Nigeria is waking up the corporate Nigeria. So my question now is, in a country where tribalism and religion thrives, how is it, is that something that can be achieved? And if yes, what are various ways you can achieve it? So that's my Christian.
Thank you. I think we can come back to the front now. Right, so very quickly we'll take from the two gentlemen who have been accused of a few things by the panel.
I want to ask a question, but first of all, let me put it this way. I'm more of a journalist than a politician. And people make this mistake. Once they see this cap on your head, they assume you're a politician. If I show you a picture of my dad in 57, this was the cargo. Although it was a stalwart of the Action Congress at that time, Action Group at that time. Yes, I worked in government briefly for about 80 years, but I'm primarily a journalist. I'm a reporter to the COP. And you see,
politics?
yes, I was actually politics editor of the Punch newspaper until I resigned in 2010 to set up my own organization before I went to the Thank you. Yes. Well, you see, when you're talking about Hydra-headed issue like corruption, you don't even know where to start from. So massive, so endemic. When you're talking about anatomy, I think anatomy in science is about how they dissect. You don't know how to, you want to see the inside of something. The more you look on the Nigerian corruption issue, the less you will see. I said it's a very massive thing, so but I'm going to limit myself to a particular area. You see, when you're looking at a problem as diverse as this, you want to look at it from which angle you want to look at it to tackle it. People will look at it from the area of the law and they say, okay, the law has also failed us. Because when people have stolen, people now believe that they will steal to the point that, okay, you have enough money to hire the best lawyers. So you can keep on asking for adjournment and adjournment until the case itself, you forget about it. See, if I tell you some recent cases now, we seem to have, we no longer talk about them. Who is talking about Edu again? Who is talking about the minister? Who is also involved, who is also in government? Edu has been asked to stay while the matter is being investigated. How long will the matter be investigated? When it is time, even when they bring the matter, they say, okay, why don't you just allow the year to go? Is that not it? Okay, so now the law has failed us. But I want to come to where the area that concerns me, journalism. Journalism that is supposed to be the one that is actually holding people accountable. Journalism itself is failing people. There's a protest in Abuja today. I don't know whether they have ended. Some journalists are protesting at the headquarters of the Nigerian police. What are they protesting against? The arrest and detention or abduction of a journalist, Daniel Ojubu. And why was he arrested? He did a report for FID talking about a special advisor to the president awarding certain contract, and that part of the payment was actually made. Part of payment for the construction of the facility was actually made to an account belonging to a restaurant. I mean, but for that reason, he was picked up. He's been kept in detention for days. People are protesting. But why do I bring that out? Why some journalists are protesting or someone has been arrested for exposing certain level of corruption? Some journalists will be out to say they want to do PR for the people exposed. Has journalism not failed us? Religion is failing us. If we say, okay, every other person, let us go to church. Churches have failed us. Mosques have failed us. Even traditional religion people too, they have failed us. I saw a video a few days ago. They said some people were doing oath of office in Ekiti and they were using Ogun. But you could see that even when you were using Ogun, nobody was actually taking the sit down. It was like a drama, like a comedy. Now, I was on the same program, incidentally, on a TV interview program a few days ago. luckily, with my brother, Oshewa. And the journalists, because I also want to talk about the quality of the journalists that you also have today. We were almost practical. Well, I think while I was stupefied, Oshewa was like telling the person who was interviewing, the interviewer, and look, you cannot force your own opinion on us. You are a journalist. You have invited us as panelists to come and dissect a particular issue for you. Don't tell us what you want us to say. Allow us to analyze it to the best of our. If we are ignorant, you have the viewers to conclude that these are non-entities. If we make sense, allow the viewers to look at, to judge us. But the interviewer kept on telling us that no, it's like this is what you want you to say. But I don't want to be particular. I will mention the name of the station and the name of the interviewer. But that is what you also find in many of our media houses, where people are actually not journalists, but just mere commentators. And so they impose on you and the generality of the people their own opinions, whether right or wrong. My brother, if you want me to ask a question, how do we tackle that kind of this? Thank you.
All right. I think you had a contribution, sir. So the final one.
Yes. Debo Adeniran is my own name. I will be giving a contribution, and I will use myself as a point of contact. Because you asked, who is not corrupt? I said, me, I'm not corrupt.
Yes, you did.
Aha. So, that's just, what did I say? Anyway, the important thing is that Nigerians are not corrupt. We have a failure of government. The essence of governance is service to humanity. When the government is not serving the people find their way to take care of themselves. Period. A good example, during Shagari regime, they brought in about 400 fishing trawlers. My dad was a chief engineer for Debo fishing. All the fishers, they know him. They say, Oloy, call your dad. We'll give him 2 trawlers. I said, Dad, I was so happy. This is an offer. He looked at me. He said, you want me to build a house for you to inherit? I said, you want to serve people till you die? He said, where I'm living till I die, nothing will happen to me. So, he just opened his drawer, gave me, I think, 200 naira or 500 naira. Go and buy one jack on the flat. You live there and be comfortable. Get out. You see, that is contentment. When people are contented, yes, that is the word. You have addressed it. Availability. Social welfare infrastructure was abandoned by government. How do you want people to exist? You see, when Jakone was building all those estates, nobody was ready to live there, even roads. But today, you are saying a flat in Lekki is 7 million, 5 million.
7 million. It's more than that.
17 million. For rent. How can people get it if they are not corrupt? So, my own submission is that we should devise preventive measures to corruption. We cannot fight corruption. Preventive measures. And it must start from government. And as my brother has said, let it even be from the local government. So that every youth corper that is delivering the youth service, let him have a house, let him have social welfare, and he will be ready to serve the nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. So just do quickly across the panel, right, a recap of the questions. There was one on, and this was for you, Mr. Adeniran, a question on awareness on pseudo-corruption, the whistleblower policy and its efficacy. But I want us to start with Mr. Oshoma, because he says he has to rush back to the office.
Yes, thank you. I take the question on whether...
Is it okay to have corruption as long as the people are satisfied?
No.
I'm not talking about, when Prof talked about availability, he's not talking about the availability of you take everything and give little. No, that's not the kind of availability we're talking about. The kind of availability we're talking about, I think people should understand, when we say the Arab world, the Western world, our mommy here, capped it all before she left. I also, when I visited London recently, I did a video from there and I said, look, all these ones were making noise. If the president had, upon inauguration, said, you know what, like the wife said, we have made so much money, we don't need money. If he had said, look, just like Bill Gates, all my words, I had made money from the Nigerian system. I don't need 95% of this. I'm giving it back to grow Nigeria. I believe so much in Nigeria, we don't have another one. And I invite my friends and everybody in government to give back. Do you know that today, EFCC won't have much to do? Because these people they are chasing as will naturally give back. Because, really, I'm not talking about you take 30 billion and then you give 100 million to buy Kena Pep as empowerment. That's not the kind of empowerment we're talking about. We're talking about genuine availability. I remember when we went to visit Jafone, Baba Kikere, there was no police or layer. We just walked upstairs and Baba addressed us. And anytime you wanted to go to his house, you just go. No airs, no. I mean, why he was living close to a police station. Without his old crown, white crown, was there. And you find out that when it is not available, that's when everybody rush for it. And the program my brother here was talking about, if the journalist didn't allow us to talk, he would ask you a question before you say anything, he will interject and try to force the idea. And then, no, are you saying, allow me to do the talking? Because it is not available. So people want to push their narrative, their idea out there as much as they can. And then my brother also talked about the gatekeepers. Because when you know it is not available, it becomes a privilege for you to have it. And that's why his boss can apologize to the government for the demeanor. It has happened to me. As a lawyer, a client slapped me in court and had the effrontery to follow me to the office to report me to my boss, who was a senior advocate. My boss, right before him, insulted the living daylight out of me. But when he left, he said, you understand. These people are the ones that pay. So he doesn't know, just manage. He's a big client. But if it is available, a lawyer will reject brief. When Alamisia was arrested in London, the first lawyer they got, the man said he was on vacation and that he could not do any case at that time because he was on vacation. But here, even when you go on vacation, they'll bring you back. So, because you believe that you want to secure that, because you want to secure your own, secure your children's home, secure your children's home. And we bring me to my sister. When we go back to the family, children we used to emulate, or we used to admire those days because their parents were rich. Today are admiring us because our parents trained us. So if we imbibe that in people, and then also it is available, I know that I don't have to beg somebody to beg Prof to give me a job. I would focus on what will give me the job, and I know that at the end of the day, I can afford the basic things of life. But when it is not available, that's when everybody begins to, how do I corner the little that I have now? How do I keep peace? And even the man you kept in EFCC, even the journalists, even the religious leader, everybody want to gather and keep. And when you now begin to gather, you talk to a gatherer, the little that is meant for everybody, one person will corner it. And then he gives you little and he says he's a philanthropist. You know, we need to be sure. All of us here, I can tell you, rounding up, I can tell you that if you have 10 million naira in your account today, I can swear that you will not spend 1 million for yourself. 9 million, you will spend it for things you really don't need. So once we understand that concept, that what really do we need in life? So some of these things we acquire, we keep, we want to also give it out and use it to impact society, and then we'll reduce corruption. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oshoma.
So please, Prof, please, permission, can I quickly run because I have scheduled meeting?
Yes, thank you very much for the second chance or third chance actually, and I appreciate all the questions. They accentuate what we have been saying. Actually, it's more or less that we are repeating ourselves. Really, the first thing we need to do is what has been said, that everybody, first and foremost, like Socrates said, know thyself. You don't want to be corrupt. How do you wriggle out of it within this environment where everybody has one reason or the other to engage in corruption, even Oloye? Because you can't be a successful politician without either lying or aiding somebody to lie or something. You must do something wrong. Maybe that's why his party has never won. Maybe that's why your party and you can't win in this environment if you continue like that.
It's okay.
You know,
maybe a one example.
Maybe because when Ganifa contested the election, of course, some of us advised him that you won't win because you can't spend money the way an average regular politician will spend money. Falana didn't win. Falana didn't win. Aturu didn't win. All of them that are of, Spartan character, they can't win. I mentioned Taishola the other time. He didn't have much followers after the events of the TBS, where he went to dance with Miriam Babangida, during Better Life for Rural Women. I was the secretary of Ghana and Solidarity Association. He was the chairman. He was the president actually. We published a book on why Babangida should not continue. He went to that event. They railroaded him, just like they wanted to railroad into saying things that are diametrically opposite to what we have published. So when he came back, we showed him that this is what you said at TBS. By the way, TBS is Tabawa Balewa story. This is what you said. This is what you signed at the Ghana and Solidarity Association. How do you reconcile both? He said, look, I'm guilty as charged. But if you want to fire me democratically. What he's saying is that we should follow the rule of our organization. That we should not just ask him to go. Of course, we have to call the neck and did what we needed to do. He was removed as the president of the GFSC. That is what will solve the problem of this country. Going by the rule of law. We made a law for ourselves, whether it was imposed on us by Abdulsalami Abubakar, even after so much has been said about it. And Oba majority didn't even know the content of the constitution he was going to govern us with before he won the election. But we knew that as long as we didn't reject it, we didn't come out to reject that document, it became our own constitution. Now, anybody that operates under that constitution, as individual or corporate body, must obey the content of that constitution until another one is done. And that what brings me into question of whistleblower. The Whistleblower Protection Act has not been passed. And if it is not passed, we can implement it. But there is a policy on the ground by the former administration that compensates whistleblowers who lead, the anti-corruption agencies to finding out where corruption, are endemic or where they are hiding their loot and the rest of it. A few people have been, compensated. But then along the line, some people began to blow fake whistles and bastardize everything. Because those who are supposed to compensate whistleblowers were asking for cuts. Now they also push people, ordinary investigators. We push who have discovered certain things. We push somebody to come and blow the whistle. The whistle that had been blown by himself, but because he is not in a position that could be to earn the compensation, we now ask his friend, go and blow this whistle, and the compensation we share. Then everything now became scatter. So, if we obey our rules, okay, nobody will want to perpetrate corruption in the first place. Because there's no rule, there's no law, there's no edict, there's no act of parliament that says that people should engage in corrupt practices. But then there are so many that are aiding and abetting corruption. Even when when you look at them from outside, you think that they are holier than thou. Look at what is going on in the National Assembly. Several of the allowances they legislate for themselves is outside the allocation by physical and revenue mobilization. It's outside it, and once they did that, it is illegal. Nobody has been questioned. Nobody has been jailed. I was talking about Peter Odili the other time. He was given perpetual injunction by a court of law in this country. We have to.
Let me correct that impression.
Okay.
That perpetual injunction was vacated at the Court of Appeal. Okay. People didn't know. That injunction was appealed at the Court of Appeal Benin, and it was vacated. EFCC did not pursue the prosecution. And so the impression is that there's still a perpetual injunction. That injunction was vacated by the Court of Appeal. Nobody knows this.
Everybody has been said.
Okay, that now comes to, you are also a journalist in a way. Samuel is a journalist. There are many journalists here. Why is it that you didn't make us know? We have the right to know. If it is public, now you have done it. You have always been on television. Maybe you, okay, I didn't get it. Okay, Samuel didn't say so anyway. So the truth is this. Anybody, I told you the other time that if somebody keeps quiet on what he knows, I didn't say he had committed corruption crime. Whether it's pseudo corruption, whether it's true corruption, he has his conscience to answer that. So when you look at editors like Samuel and the rest of them and the younger ones that are there, okay, they slant their stories sometimes to benefit the corrupt element. And when he does that, of course, they are writing stories about said corruption. Even the story of Yaya Bello, it depends on the side you look at it. The media will give you some side of it that he has eaten 50, 70 something, 40 something billion. Then somebody will now say, okay, this has not been broken down. And that's how Benga Daniel escaped the hangers, hangbands loose. Okay, they themselves, because we were there, I was reported as spying for Benga Daniel. Then I was taking Benga Daniel to task. So at the end of the day, we were in their office in Abuja. We now said that, how come will somebody steal that much and no accomplices? Then most of the 200 something, it has to do with landed property in that Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, where nobody wanted to buy. According to him, he explained this. EFCC on their own came back to court to withdraw the initial case and reduce it to 200. The same thing with this Yaya Bello. They filed an appeal. When they knew that they have messed up, they went back to court to thwart the appeal. And a lot of things are happening. So we need our institutions, our professionals, to be truthful to their consciences. Okay, then individual families should reorientate their kids from home before they get to school. Then school curriculum had to be reworked in such a way from the very beginning. not kindergarten in the transition. So they have to remove all this unmerited favor, well, and ensure that from the beginning they train the children not to enjoy what they don't deserve, and where punishment should be administered to those who have committed corruption crime, so that they know that they won't get away with it, like they do in Asian countries.
Maybe you're asking for us to ban it as a prayer in churches.
Yes, please ban it. In fact, close down all churches.
Nzeakor, your final thoughts, please.
I want to thank everybody for the robust discussion. Robust discussion on this issue. And I want to tap on my own conclusion on the issue about solution. A lot of solutions have been preferred, but I like to attack issues fundamentally. This saying that if you want to cure an ailment, leave the symptoms and attack the root cause. The fundamental root cause of corruption in Nigeria, the way it has first started. You know, I've always held the opinion that human beings by their nature have the tendencies for corruption, whether pseudo, real, social, political, economic, any form of corruption. And that it is a society that wants to grow that will checkmate those intrinsic tendencies. Now, the Nigerian society has become such that it has become a rat race environment where, because of the quasi-federalism that we practice, the pseudo-federalism that we practice, that has led to pseudo-corruption, that has manifested to real corruption, and has grown into a gigantic hydra-headed corruption. And that is, yes, and that is the morbid corruption. And that is where we are now. And a lot of people have profiled that we need to go back to the root, the basics, start from the infancy. How do you train a child when the trainer is corrupt? What are you going to tell the child? You can't give what you don't have. And in an environment where the child is to be taught to be aggressive, to grab what should come to him or her, in an environment where it has become a rat race, if we don't fine-tune our reward and punishment system, which Professor Kila had earlier hinted, then we are going nowhere. And in order to grab the issue from the cradle, not only are we going to look at the fundamentals, we also have to look at our social engineering, our social relationship as a nation. I agree with my brother Debo that every corrupt tendency has origin. And that is why every criminal or everybody who engages in a crime has a root. If I hold my brother who is a criminal, you hold your sister who is a criminal. The other one holds his son who had a tendency for criminality. We have sanitized the society. And I cannot know what is going on in your house better than you knowing it. And that is why this our structure at the end of the day is one that is not allowing anything to go well. So if we look at that, and I'm from Anambra State, I cannot love a bad man more than he will love himself. If something is given for me to share, I will naturally have the tendency to give it to the man from Abaga than the man from Ikereket. It is a natural tendency. But when that thing that is to be shared does not involve the Ikereket man, I will share within my own locality. The Ikereket man will share within his own locality. The man in Karamona will share within his locality. That way, those primordial tendencies towards corruption will die down. We all meet at the top. At that point, we are not interested in what is there. Rather, we are interested in development. That is a classical example of what structure can do to this topic of corruption. And I want want to urge Nigeria to think in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My panel, Fred Nzeakor, Debo Adeniran, and Nabilah Usman are discussing the anatomy of corruption. Thank you so much for being a lovely audience. Professor, who do I hand the microphone to? Right. It's been a pleasure to moderate the conversation. Again, my name is Nabilah Usman, and many people are identified as journalists in the room, so I'm just going to sidestep that identification for now.
Thank you very much, Nabilah. Maybe I should start with you. You've been quite wonderful. You made it so stimulating, and you gave people the opportunity to express themselves. Thank you so much. Yes, I think I should say very big thank you on behalf of CIAPS to our panelists, my brother-in-law, Mr. Oshoma. When you mentioned Kila, I said this is very close to home because my husband is from Edo State. Wow. So thank you very much. And my husband is also a lawyer like you. And then Mr. Debo Adeniran, thank you very much for that very insightful contribution. And our barrister, Mr. Nzeakor, thank you very much. You really trashed, the main point. And I also really need to say a big thank you to our professor all the time, who is always, breaking it down like the big academics and a professor of the money. Thank you very much. I want to say thank you also to all the people who are in attendance. You see, we were able to rub minds and people were putting up their hands. Even though we started with that hit, the vein of corruption, but at least, at the end of the day, we were able to contribute. We're happy that at least we are taking away something. My dear brother, the veteran journalist and politician, thank you very much. And our cameraman, you've done so wonderfully well. Mommy who spoke about culture is like you just have everything, And I was telling you that when someone was talking about the Asians, how they really go after their culture. And I said, even as much as speaking their language, even when they are in England or in America, they speak their language to their children. And you find out that the children can speak both the language and the Western language. So culture is just too important. Thank you very much. I hope we can have more of this. And I'm really happy to be part of this. I was going to be sleepy because I just returned on a very long flight, but I couldn't because it was very stimulating. Thank you very much.
Must be the number of lawyers in the room. Mr. Adeniran kept saying that he's not a lawyer, but the number of times he said constitution.
He has to defend himself with that.